need you here.
I have half the brain that you do.
I did it for The Rock.
Oh my God!
The Most Crucial Podcast presents Crucial Squared Circle, the most crucial wrestling podcast with Mark Franchise and Davison Sarai.
A little bit of the bubbly. And that's the bottom line. The Stone Cold said so.
Yeah, welcome back to the Crucial Squared Circle. Hope you guys had a happy holiday season. Plans changed, and you're going to get another podcast before the end of the year. Lucky you. Woo! Hey!
Yay.
We just
Don Imus is dead.
Don Imus is dead.
Pre-game conversation. leading
Pre-game
right
conversation.
into the beginning. Of
I just wanted to open with a bang. Don Imus is dead.
Yes.
Ding dong.
Similar to, I mean, lots of people are affected. Obviously, he's a legendary radio host. He's also a legendary racist as well. So, pick your battles. More.
Okay, so
More on how you.
Not.
More on how you feel, but more on however you need to.
Next song.
So yeah,
Cornet's coming for you, Imus. Cornet's coming.
Jim Cornette is coming to town. I don't know where that came from. Sorry, holiday season. We're finally around people that we like. So.
Merry holiday.
Yes.
So, anyway, we got a lot to get into. We're going to do the most impactful moments in wrestling history today as our main topic, but we're just going to shoot around some of the stuff. We're going to kind of look at the last year in professional wrestling. Been a lot of stuff going on.
It's been a crazy year.
Yeah, it has been. We went and we watched AEW last week, tag titles on the line. And we're going to get into a little bit of the creative discussion as well with All Elite Wrestling. There's a lot of people who are kind of chiming in, giving their opinions about the product and just some things that I wouldn't say curious about or concerned. It's just things that have come up that I've looked as fair viewpoints, and I'm just going to bring them up in front of you two and see.
Oh, you mean some critiques of the AEW product and creative?
Yeah, just
Gotcha.
kind of curious where it's headed. The big news, they're announcing AEW Homecoming, which is going to be freaking sweet. Cody and Dustin are going up against the Lucha Brothers.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that
Where are they
matchup.
coming home to?
It's their their homecoming, their anniversary of the inauguration of the
Chicago
product.
show.
Yeah.
The third show?
No, this is the one. Remember, you had said that they got a different venue this time around.
Yeah. This is a different Wintrust Arena, I believe, in Chicago. Yeah.
That's this event, the homecoming.
Yeah,
Oh,
but the Revolution is in Chicago.
Oh, that's what I was. So homecoming is down in Florida then? I'm
I
trying
think
to
it's
remember
in what is it?
Jacksonville?
Georgia?
Christ, we're ill-prepared for this topic.
Because, I mean, there's always stuff happening in the wrestling world, ladies and gents.
Well, they did just announce it. The AE Homecoming. You are right. That's in Florida. Yeah, they announced the dark.
Watch out for Florida, man.
Yeah, the dark card. They got SCU going up against Kip Sabian and TH2.
God, I love TH2.
Santana and Ortiz against Austin and Billy Gunn.
Oh.
And the Nightmare Collective is going to appear as well.
It just sounds like a fun evening.
It does.
Yeah.
It
So that's on
really does.
Dark. Actually, and I just started watching Dark.
Dark is fun.
It is. It's actually, there's a lot of different stuff on there as well.
It's really not, to me, it's not that much of a step down. I mean, they're not pushing the storylines as hard.
Yeah.
But match quality in the lineups, I find to be, occasionally they'll slide in like that Brandon Cutler or like their real green beans.
Yeah.
But
Actually,
I think for the most part, it's pretty on par.
I was mistaken. I think that Lucha Brothers and Cody and Dustin match is actually happening this Wednesday on New Year's Day. Homecoming. Oh, actually, no. It's the Homecoming edition is coming on January 1st. So that's when it is. It's in Florida, and one of the big matches that they announced for that is the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega versus the Lucha Bros and Pac.
Oh, man.
That better be like a half-hour match for
Right. Hey, do you remember maybe about a month ago now, we were talking about how the match quality and the work style of most of the AEW people is going to kind of redefine what we call a pay-per-view quality match?
Yeah.
And we were saying, well, okay, if you compare a standard like Wednesday night match of AEW to almost like a WWE pay-per-view main event, there's some similarities in terms of match quality.
Yeah.
Now we're a handful of months into AEW, and now we're starting to just willy-nilly throw around things like Lucha Brothers and Pac versus, the Golden Elite. Like,
Yeah.
we're already getting used to it, but that's still a fucking dream match.
Yeah,
you know?
and lots of people are sitting there like, oh, you should save that for pay-per-view. I'm like, I'll watch that twice.
That's just their standard roster. It's just their standard roster, though.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
How do you can't not have dream matches when you got a dream roster. It's crazy.
And that's one of the things I'm kind of curious about, because it's something that I've seen, and we'll dip into it a little early too, is the creative direction. A lot of people are saying, the Young Bucks keep taking losses. Kenny Omega keeps taking losses. I mean, you saw the Dark Order come out last week, and all the top guys who were billed as top talent come out, and they just get their ass whooped by a bunch of jobbers in masks, basically.
Those aren't jobbers. Those are not jobbers. I don't know how many more times I got to tell you. We're moving into 2020. I just want to lay this down. If you're going to continue to disrespect Evil Uno and the Dark Order in this fashion, like, they got eyes and ears everywhere. Like, if I'm in the studio with you, I'm fucked the same as you are, so I need you to knock it off. Like, this is the last time I'm telling you both. Please. Next topic.
Anyway.
I can't be more serious about this. Is dire situation.
But I'm curious where they're going to take all of this, too, because it's quite clear, people are saying, obviously Jericho was going to be their top guy going into it.
Oh, yeah.
And, like we've discussed before, he's a guy who is, at the end of the day, he's going to go down as one of the all-time greats. Just for the simple fact he's able to reinvent himself constantly.
Oh, and easily.
And continues to get better behind the mic.
Yeah, consistently on the mic. He's always been there, always will be there. He's a man that brings and delivers every time you ask him to. So that's something that he needs to maintain, and he will maintain, because he is the Le Champion.
Indeed. And that's the important thing, too, is you got to remember, a lot of people are like, oh, this ship is starting to sink on AEW. I'm like, people, this is the 12th week.
They just left the dock. This is... Well, didn't you tell me, T, you mentioned before, didn't they just sign some kind of a contract for like a platform for their pay-per-views through at least 21?
Yeah, 2021 is the deal that they're going to be doing quarterly pay-per-views. Who are these folks that you're talking about that are detractors, so to say?
Oh, just
just everybody
Facebook.
in the semi. Well, there's the casual Facebook grumpy fan. There's all the WWE diehards.
Yeah.
When I'm complaining, I'm talking about like there's this whole burgeoning group of podcasts by like kind of semi-current but mostly former like mainstream wrestling people. So Conan and Disco have one. Bully Ray's got one. Booker T's got one.
Yeah.
Taz is going to be on
Taz had
AEW
one.
next week. I just thought I'd throw that out.
Yeah, very
That's
true.
awesome. But they've all kind of like in different ways. They keep dipping into their whole, well, during the Attitude Era, this worked, and therefore they're not doing what worked, so it's not going to work. And we've said it repeatedly, like, they're just kind of like old dogs, and they don't understand these new tricks. So they keep looking at it like it's a problem, when in fact it's just almost like a new product that they don't understand.
Well, yeah.
So they got a position against it succeeding. And a lot of it now, I think, cooks down to ego, just like the Trump thing. People who have said, Trump, Trump, Trump. Like, they can't turn around now and say, oh, okay, you're right. He's a complete moron.
Yeah.
Like, and these same people, I don't think they can eat crow and finally go, okay, fine, I admit it. Omega's amazing. Fine, the Bucks are amazing. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And that, again, I think that goes back to people being spoon-fed wrestling, where it's like, if it's not on TV, it's not worth looking at. If it's not being handed to me on a platter, then
Right.
they're obviously not that good because they're not in WWE. And it's like, well, since when was WWE the bar for top talent in the world? I mean, that's where you go if you want to make a great living. Don't get me wrong.
And it's kind of
And
like, that's like the nature of capitalism, though. You know what I mean? Like, people are conditioned to think that the thing they see the most of or the most expensive thing is the best thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, you know what I'm saying, though? Like, WWE had Savio Vega and Fatu and Duke the Dumpster Droese. ECW had, Eddie Guerrero and Benoit and Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio Jr. and all these guys in their prime. So, yeah.
Well, this is why I always bring music and wrestling up together, though, because they're the same one to me. If you're going to find quality, you're going to find it away from the mainstream. The brighter the lights get on it, the more it's watered down crap for a lot of people who just don't have a developed palate for the product,
Hey, I like Green Day. What are you talking
I like Green Day too. I like their old stuff better.
Yeah, well, y'all can wake me up when September ends on that one.
I'm talking about flipping some Duke here on, son.
Oh yeah, that was my first album. That was the first album I ever owned, and still jam it out super hardcore.
Fuck yeah, it's a good one.
But it's a simple fact that these guys are just getting started. They're getting rolling. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I love when people are like I saw headlines like NXT destroys AEW in the ratings, and it was a matter of like literally like 80,000 people.
Right.
And I was like, that's a lot of people. Don't get me wrong, but however.
It's less than a tenth of a point, right?
I was like, yeah. I was like, well, they clocked in over like 800,000 people. So when people are like, oh, nobody showed up, nobody's watching, I'm like, how many people watched your wrestling show, buddy?
You know what? This is what bums me out about it. This is why I get so freaking mad at all these people. Imagine if you were at like a senior football game and your home team was doing pretty good. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like all these NFL guys come out of the stands onto the fucking field. And they just crushed the other team, right?
Right.
That's what NXT did.
Yeah.
Like, they called in the NFL players to come in and squat. And I'm not knocking the NXT roster by any stretch. But, when we say the mainstream, I'm saying that to, like, knock the mainstream product. So, like, if they need main show people to show up on NXT, meaning the mainstream people, then that's what they did. They gave them the big stuff, and then all of a sudden they're tuning in. But to me, that's not really a victory from NXT.
No, it's more of a reflection on the worry that they have that, oh, now we have competition. And like you've brought up plenty of times before, now we got numbers that we got to hit. Now we're answering to a corporate master.
Yep.
And we have to do everything that they tell us. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
Yeah, something interesting on that note is that I heard somebody talking about how their market demographic is kind of gapped, particularly for what's going on with AEW versus what NXT's got versus what WWE has Raw and SmackDown. Their demographic that they keep missing the mark on, WWE that is, from what I've been hearing, is that it's specifically between the 18 to 35.
Yeah, yep.
By missing that mark consistently, they are then in turn putting themselves in a position where they are only capitalizing on those fans that they have had for the last several years.
Yeah, it's the real young ones or the real old ones.
Correct. So,
Yep.
I mean, the real young ones are theoretically possibly going to maintain that interest for many years. We don't know. It's to be determined if they burn them out or if they just keep shoving down Roman Reigns at them.
Right. Well, seeing those kids, I wonder. Because, like, when I was young, I had all those, like, that first wave of, like, those rubber WWE guys, like the 9-inch dudes in that little, like, 2-foot ring with the rubber ropes and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that was a bummer, too, because, like, the best wrestlers had the best figures.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I don't like Macho Man was my favorite, and he was doing, like, this pose. Like,
Yep.
so all you could do was, like,
flexing
an
on him.
above-the-shoulder headlock and an elbow drop. But so, like, when I played those, my favorite characters were Corporal Kirshner, for Christ's sake.
Oh, my gosh.
Because he was posed, like, really well to do cool stuff. Steamboat had a cool one. But see, like, yeah, that's the thing. When I was a kid, I just took toys like, wow, these are awesome. And I wonder if people are the same way now.
I would say
with
the
all this
same
stuff.
in the same boat with my friend Raj. He collects all sorts of toys, and one of the ones that he is a big fan of is G.I. Joe's. And his introduction into wrestling from back in the day was Sergeant Slaughter. Yep. So that was his exposure to that, and seeing all of that tie-in. And then outside of all that, I mean, the idea of these folks being either pushed out of the market, particularly these older folks who are above the age of 35 and into their ages of 18 to 35 is their mark, and then 36 through 50 is the next bracket.
Something like that.
Something along those lines. It's an interesting bracket, but either way, they're targeting a clientele that is aging out of their interest or aging into their interest.
Yeah.
If you don't keep that interest into something of worthwhile, it's going to falter. The other group that they're capitalizing on, who AEW is capitalizing on, is that 18 to 35 demographic. They're not making toys, though. They're making video games. From what I've been hearing, there's the talk of the THQ folks jumping in and doing a partnership with AEW for
such a dream.
PS4 or some variation of sorts. It would be wonderful. Mm-hmm. Now, for those that don't know, who have not picked it up, New Japan Pro Wrestling did put out a version with Kenny Omega of Fire Pro Wrestling World on the PS4. Which
How is that?
It's cool.
It's dope.
I think it's cool.
It's very dope. It's exactly as the old school one, just updated with the roster of the Bullet Club from then, and a handful of other folks from Los Increíbles, I believe.
Is it just a simulator, or do you play?
You
play through the fights?
I was
too?
actually.
You
it was-
actually play through the fights.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually a part of like a fantasy league almost where this dude basically ran pay-per-views Sunday nights. I couldn't hang with it because he would air them at like 11 o'clock at night, and he would just run a simulator, but he'd create your character, and you could cut promos, and he'd put promos in on the live stream, and it was pretty cool. It was just like a gig simulator basically. But I'd say if you were going to compare graphics, it's almost similar to Acclaim's Sega Genesis Royal Rumble.
Yeah, skin
For
of a
the
Super
Sega
Nintendo.
or Super Nintendo.
Super
It's
Nintendo.
kind of like in 2D in a
Yeah.
weird sort of
Almost,
way,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but with a little bit sharper graphics, more options, obviously because it was a cool game. I thought it was pretty sweet looking, but again, you get THQ involved.
Yeah, that's
oh,
going to be
man.
stepping into a whole new realm. For those that don't know, THQ had the wonderful helm of WCW versus NWO World Tour and Revenge.
Yeah,
Both of those stellar games.
Was it for
And
the
there was another one.
Nintendo 64?
That was for the Nintendo
Yeah.
64. Yeah.
God, those were the best.
They were solid.
and then
So-
they answered back with WrestleMania 2000
Yeah.
and No Mercy, and it was like, oh my gosh! I remember when Revenge came out, I was like, man, if they just made a wrestling game for WWF. Because at the time they were still working through Acclaim, and it was the very like
God.
stiff Warzone and
I remember
Attitude. Attitude was a fun game, but then ECW raised the bar.
Which one was the one where you could tackle with Stone Cold and then do your little head bob and flick him off? Was that
I think that was Warzone.
okay? Yeah.
Oh
Warzone,
yeah.
All right. You did a little.
Yeah.
I
She was
missed
so.
the whole wave of games right around that time period.
Oh, it was
Oh,
It was so rough.
It sounds
But-
bleak.
Yeah, the ECW game was fun though. Even though I wasn't I loved it. Attitude was the best there was at the time, and then World Tour came around, and it was like, man, WCW had a just a stranglehold on the wrestling world for a minute there.
I don't remember which game it was. I think it might have been the second one. I remember using Scott Steiner
Yeah.
as much as possible.
Yeah.
He did that, what was it called? The Steiner driver?
Yeah.
Where he'd pick him up for a suplex and then just like let him go into it. He'd like drop
Yeah.
onto his ass into a pile driver. Omega does something similar to that right now, and it scares the living crap out of me.
Oh, yeah.
He picks people up like in a double underhook, like he's going to do the pedigree,
Okay.
but he picks them straight up, and then he drops them into a DDT.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, some of that stuff really spooks me.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
But anyway, yeah, that was my big thing, was using that move back on that game. It stood way out. Those games were like light years above the other stuff.
Yeah, it just always seemed like, like especially when World Tour came out, I was like, this is fun. And then when they came out with Revenge, it was like, oh, sweet. Now you can do your own thing. They got the Wolf Pack in there. It was a little bit more, the game was a little bit more flexible.
That opening credit scared the shit out of me. All right, the lightning, and then Sting showed up, and then the semi, and then just lightning, and then yeah. I was there.
It's
Yeah,
not like I really have that much love for WWF or WWE's like canned music. What was that guy's name that used to do all the entrance music for WWF for the longest?
Oh, man.
Remember he did all of their stuff for
Yeah,
like
I
10,
can't,
15.
God, I can't
Kevin
remember.
Dunn.
I will say, as much as I don't love that stuff, in comparison to WCW's theme music and everything, oh my God, what a...
There was no comparison.
Whew. No, that's bad.
Yeah,
That's bad
Jim
sauce.
Johnston.
Jim
I
Johnston,
think
there you go.
was. Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. He. I mean, he was able to take the character and produce a song that fit them perfectly. That's one thing I always liked about his work and the music that he would do. It always seemed like he came up with a really good entrance song for people. And WCW, they were okay in some areas, but like a lot of that stuff was just like stock rock music.
Oh, my God.
It was like whatever.
Do you
They didn't
remember?
care.
Do you remember DDP's music? It was like a real cheap knockoff of Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and they also had a lot.
High five.
Bang, bang.
Oh, I was like,
Bang bang.
I'm like, dude, I can respect that you're an old dude who got into wrestling late. I can respect that you do yoga like a motherfucker. I can respect that you're saving lives out here. Don't give yourself high fives.
Don't give yourself high.
That's just the word. And if you
Man.
do, just do it on the sly.
Yeah.
Don't announce it to everybody.
Oh man.
Didn't he enter
Cringe.
in at 35?
Yeah, I think the only
We still got a chance.
No
entrance
chance.
music.
Hell.
I think the only entrance music WCW ever even came close to like really hitting it on was Goldberg.
Oh, you're talking about Thugonomics, yeah. Wait, sorry.
Talking about
What?
his theme music?
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Goldberg's theme music.
Ba, ba.
And they was just they set
We're all different parts of it.
take the bass, take the bass.
We're doing a great
It
job.
was like Star Wars, kind of.
Yeah. It's definitely the end of the year. But that was just about the other one. And then, NWO was cool too, but that was very like Jimi Hendrix style. Because even Hogan would come out to, what would Hogan come out to? Because he wouldn't just come out to the NWO track. He'd come out to...
It was like a knockoff of Voodoo Child.
Yeah. So I don't know how they
God.
got away with that, but it
So
just,
bad.
it just they didn't have a proper composer at all. They did not put stock in the entrance music. But that's what separated them. One of the many things that separated them from WWE. WWE was way more about the performance and the presentation. WCW just wanted the big names.
Man, if you need a more painful example, think about Hogan Warrior, WrestleMania 6.
Oh my God.
And yeah, I know it's a lot of time passed.
Yeah.
But then fast forward to Warrior Hogan, WCW.
Halloween Havoc.
Oh my God, that first promo when Warrior
Brutal.
showed up, and he was live. And I swear to Christ, I've heard Bischoff talk about it a few times. It was like 15 straight minutes of just Warriorisms and rantings.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of remember seeing it and going from being like, I can't believe he's really on TV,
Yeah.
to slowly going into, God, get him off TV. This
Oh
is
my God.
brutal.
And they were talking about like the whole mythos behind this is that, you're targeting a new audience. You want to make this seem like a huge deal, but because it's a new audience, you don't want to draw back to the fact that they faced each other before. And that's like one of the first things he says. But
Great job.
I mean, why else do it?
well, that's what I'm saying. I was like, they made a big deal out of him doing that. Like, he just ruined everything by alluding to the fact that they faced each other before. And I was like, but then why? Then how are people going to get the significance of you making this big thing about this?
If that's not a nostalgia fight, I don't want to see it. Like, I can watch that bum fights video for next
Right.
week.
And that was all just Hogan trying to get a win on Warrior is all he wanted.
God.
You got your manhood back, It's like,
You know what? This is a little bit of a side swerve, but that's our style. I've been listening to 83 Weeks recently, and I've
Yeah.
been listening to a little bit of the one with Pritchard. I can't remember what that one's called all the time, but anyway, they were talking about Conrad Thompson keeps putting Pritchard on the hot spot. He's like, do you mean to tell me that Vince McMahon never has fun with certain people and tries to humiliate them for his own entertainment on the air? And Pritchard will repeatedly say, what sense would that make? We're in this business to make money. I find that to be a non-answer, because you can make money. Like, I know I brought up Dusty Rhodes before.
Yeah.
He's a legend. And when he came into WWE, all of a sudden he's in black with yellow polka dots.
yeah.
And like, I've heard Pritchard, well, he was a common man. He was a common man. He was common. Like, there's 1,010 ways to make somebody common.
Yeah.
Without splattering with a bunch of yellow friggin' dots.
Yeah.
But he got over. And then, like we said, I mean, Goldust was a tremendous character.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's a coincidence that there's more black and gold. And this could easily be like a shame to the family name with this character. So I don't know. I feel like it's a non-question. Like, I think it's absolutely clear that, yeah, we're going to make money. But a lot of this is for Vince just to humiliate certain people.
Yes.
Well, when you, like you said, when you dive,
Yes.
yeah, when you dive in, and you kind of touched on this before, going back to some of the stuff that, you, not to slam the guy, but going back to some of the things in his past, and some of the things that he's made people do on air.
We're talking about Vince.
Yeah.
Vince holds
When
a
you-
grudge.
When you look at that and you kind of take a look at those issues or some of the things that happened at such a young age, and then you're in the business of storytelling with people, in a sense, you can kind of see, some of the things that he's made people do is a little extreme.
T, were you in on that conversation Mark and I were having? I've been obsessed from the very first episode we've done here. Well, I've been obsessed for a long time about like the mental well-being of Vince, and not even about like dementia of him getting older, but him just seeming like kind of a generally disturbed person.
No, I wasn't in on that conversation.
Yeah. I've said forever, and I just never bothered investigating because I guess I like the mystery or something, but I keep saying, like semi-ironically, Vince McMahon is running from his childhood. Everything he does is screaming for virility, for power, for control. You know what I mean? Well, then finally when Mark and I were chatting the other night, I just decided to finally do a real quick Google search. It took me about 25 seconds to find this 10-point bullet list of the things that made his life and his childhood pretty nightmarish.
Word. Yeah,
And-
you did send a couple things along those lines.
And we don't need to go in depth, but I mean, you can use your imagination. Single mom, trailer parks, various men, et cetera, et cetera. But when I think about things like, oh God, he even talked about in a Playboy interview, his first, what he considered sexual experience was with a female cousin or something when he was under the age of 10. So like, he's got a pretty skewed vision of like what, sexual masculinity is, what, virility is. So I think about Trish Stratus crawling on the ground barking. I think about Goldust. I think about all this weird humiliation and stuff that he's, the Kiss My Ass Club.
Yeah.
All of these things. Sure, they've been entertaining.
But there's always a layer of that demeaning, that
Always.
layer of,
Always.
I mean, not to sound funny, but kiss my ass. There's a layer of that in every single piece of it.
Yeah. It's always this, it's like when Trump, and I know I keep comparing the two, but when you take a paranoid narcissist type and you give him a whole lot of power and influence, that's the reason you got the word megalomaniac.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you can wield all this control. But when Trump was yelling at that crowd about the 10 toilet flushings here recently,
No.
Yeah.
What?
and then he caught himself mid-sentence, like, you got to flush the toilet 10 times, 12 times. And then he went, not me, though, not me, you, them, that guy. Like, he caught himself. Vince does the same thing all the time. Like, here's the joke, but not me, not me. And I think about Triple H coming out of retirement to squash Punk in 11. That wasn't Vince doing it, but by proxy, I think that was a classic example of like, what the fuck was the point of that?
Yeah.
It just seemed to be driven by this dude's ego, which is disturbing.
Yeah, and that still happened over time too. Like, and maybe it's not the same thing, but like when Triple H came back and beat Roman Reigns for the world title, when he or was that for Royal Rumble?
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I can remember a lot of what happens, but I've checked out so much emotionally over the last year or two.
Yeah.
Some of the chronology is escaping me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's ever since I moved back to Kalamazoo, I started watching it again, but nothing's ever been, like I said, nothing in WWE has ever been like, oh my God, except for anything that's happened in NXT.
Yeah. And now we're all in the opinion, and it seems to be pretty widespread. I'm hearing it more and more on the internet now too. Is people fearing the call up from NXT.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please don't let them get called up. They're just going to get ruined.
Yeah, and people, there's just egomaniacs all over the internet that are just, bashing these guys like, oh, they're just not good enough to come up. And I'm like, why would you want to see these guys who are having a successful career, who are doing a great job in NXT right now, who are in great angles, why would you want to see them in one of the main products?
Aside from Seth Rollins, can you point to a single person right now on that roster? And it's mind-blowing thinking about all the people who have come out of there. Well, there's Big E.
Yeah.
But think about the tiny list of people who are actually successful.
But Big E's been pigeonholed into the tag division.
Sure he has.
So, and don't get me wrong, I love tag team wrestling, and if that's what you do, that's great. There's very few people who have ever busted out of the there's a select amount of people. You find that if there's somebody who starts off in a tag team and they break off into singles competition, there's usually something pretty special about them. Bret Hart, the Hart Foundation, Shawn Michaels, the Rockers, two great teams, two very niche, specific teams.
The Rock from the Rock and Sock connection.
Yeah, but he was already an established star.
I know, I'm
by then. But I'm saying, like, just in general,
But
as
that sock never went anywhere.
yeah,
The Undertaker from the Twin Towers.
Yeah, I never saw Mr. Rocco. He never busted that out.
Well,
But when you look at tag teams like that and guys who split off and do their own thing, it's tough. It's tough when you build. It's tough when you start off as a single star and then you work and you have arguably one of the biggest tag teams or factions, you should actually call them, of all time in terms of merchandise and fan base in the New Day.
it does almost seem like you've settled in some kind of a way, doesn't it?
It just how do you break away from that? And one, does he want to? Two, how do you do that? And the only way you could possibly do that is to make Big E a villain, but it almost seems like after so much time, if you were going to turn him heel and have him go against the New Day, he would have to go into another tag team to feud against them, keeping him in the tag team division.
I'm a little bit afraid that all three dudes in the New Day are going to have Skywalker syndrome. And people are going to be so used to them looking like the happy, jubilant guys that they've loved. I think you heel turn them, you may get the right kind of heat, but I don't know if they ever recover.
Yeah.
I think you got to keep those three faces or you might lose them.
Basically. And that's what it's at. That's where it's at, too. I mean, maybe Bray Wyatt, but even him, it's like, man, you wonder what the hell's going to happen with him and the
Xavier
Fiend
Woods
character.
just re-signed for another several years.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Yeah.
Not Xavier.
Biggie. Like
No.
5 years. Kofi.
Kofi. Yeah.
I think all of them did, but here's what I heard. All three of them, and this is what I really love about Kofi. I mean, I like Kofi anyway as an entertainer. They went in, demanded equal pay. Same years, same money.
Yeah, man.
Isn't that great? Jesus.
Oh, man. How do you...
I don't know. I love that. The fact that he just had a world title run. Those other two are just, let's just admit it, it ain't going to happen.
No.
I could see it with Biggie maybe, but...
Yeah,
But again-
Xavier's kind of right now hanging on the side for a year, which is unfortunate. as
Yeah,
well.
he's got that bad Achilles.
Again, though, like,
Best of wishes, still, man.
Yeah.
Big E is... I feel like, and it's nothing against him, but with New Day, he's at the height of... I'd say he's at the height of how popular he's going to get. If you turn him heel, I just don't know if that's ever going to work. Because, like I said, you'd either have to have him feud against the New Day and join another tag team, or if he went singles and went for one of the main titles, then it's like, well, then I just feel like he would just totally lose steam.
I would like to see if Big E would be able to actually get a push on his own. I mean, I think that if he was to keep the power positivity and have Kofi in his corner and then also have Xavier show up periodically as a means of just being a rah-rah, cheer you on kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that would be... I think that folks would get behind him because he would be able to say, hey, it's my time now. And
But I think Xavier...
I think that's a quote that's been said for so long and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But...
I think Xavier Woods needs to come back in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
You know what? Now that I just said what I said, I could see Xavier because he's so good on the mic. Like, Biggie's great. Kofi's great.
Yeah.
Xavier, I mean, given the time, is way up there.
Man has a PhD.
I could see him doing a heel turn, keeping Biggie smiley. You know, it's usually easy to start a big feud that way with the faction. You know, I also, though, like the idea of if that were to ever happen with Xavier being the evil, I like a smaller heel.
Yeah.
I've always been into that, like, cunning, you know, not the overpowering heel, but the kind of, like, chicken shit.
Right,
Randy
like
Mega
Keith
brain heel. What's that?
Randy Keith Orton. Randall. Mr.
Randall.
Randall.
Mr. Hot Rod Randall.
I got so distracted just now.
It's
Good
the
Lord.
snake.
Yeah.
The snake.
I don't know, I do worry that so much, because I mean, I love New Day. I don't know how many people in our age demographic do, quite a few. I wonder, though, if so much of his support comes from that young, you know, I don't know, 10 to 15 range or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If their little hearts would be broken if he did go evil and if you'd be able to get him back.
Going back to All Elite Wrestling, something that I discovered recently, just another demographic, and this is just something to think about, because not only do you have the age demographics, but you also have personality.
How the hell do you measure that?
Well, like, who are your consumers? You really got to think
It's a 1 to 10 scale.
And this,
I'm a 4.
You're stay away from her. He's a fucking 6.
when you when you look at how many different people watch wrestling and how many people are into it, my oldest brother went to WrestleMania 3 with my dad, and he watched wrestling up until like the Attitude Era, and I don't know how much of an eye he kept on it, but now my brother's got 2 kids, a wife. He lives in Traverse City, and I brought up a little bit of the bubbly, and he kind of laughed, and he's like, "That's hilarious," and I was like, "Oh, you know about that?" He's like, "Yeah, you know." He's like, you know, if I'm laying around, there's not, you know, if nothing's on, I'll click and I'll watch AEW because it's on. You know, I'm not usually doing anything Wednesday nights, so
Nice.
he's like, I'll catch it.
So he's
I
like the
it.
definition of a casual fan.
Yeah, and he was like, I like it. He's like, it's way different. He's like, you can tell like what they're doing it's way different. It's funnier, you know. And it just appeals to the casual fan who's like, this is different, and it's not so serious business all the time.
That's what's funny is they've employed a team. I hear that the creative team is close to like 30 writers
My God, for
Where?
WWE.
at WWE.
And that's what
They're
that's
still
what I'm saying.
hiring, by the way.
When they try,
Let them.
yeah, when they try
More
to
and
be
more
funny,
writers.
they're like forcing it upon you. Like who is it? Who's the tag team in WWE? Was it not the Elite Party or what the hell are those guys called? I can't remember.
Is the Revival?
No, not the Revival.
Describe them. What do
They're
they wear?
like Life of the Party, or they're like the VIP part.
In AEW? Private Party?
Private? No, not AEW. WWE.
Oh, God, I know you're talking. Street Profits.
Street Profits, yeah. They came out and cut a promo with, who is the lucha wrestler who's making a name for himself recently? He doesn't wear a mask, but he was on...
Alberto
Alberto Del Rio. Oh,
No,
Humberto.
not Del Rio. He was on the...
Humberto Carrillo.
yeah, he was on the
I do the same.
pregame for...
Rio.
Yeah, I think he was on the pregame for Survivor Series.
Yeah.
But they came out and did a promo with him, and it was so bad. It was so bad. Like, OC was in the ring. They came down. Street Profits came down, and they were with him, and they were talking all this nonsense, and they were trying to talk crap. And basically, like, it was OC in the ring with a mic just saying, "Shut your mouth," for like 2-3 minutes. And then Homeboy started talking trash again. And then, again, AJ Styles was like, "I'm going to come down there and shut your mouth." And I was like, are we done yet? Is this over? Because, like, it was crickets.
And that's what
People were
sucks
going
is
to
those...
take a piss.
And those 5 dudes can cut, like... They're all pretty funny. All 5
Right.
of them. That's what kills me. So did you watch Dark? This
Yeah.
last one? So you saw the 4-corner tag match?
No,
Yes.
I didn't see that.
There's a spot, you know the spot, the ladder spot?
Oh, yeah.
With Freshly Squeezed. So there's a spot, it's like a hardcore, go figure, like it's a 4-corner tag match in AEW, which means it goes completely bonkers and off the rails at some point. Oh shit, you know what it was? It was Santana again. It's the same guy
yeah.
from Proud and Powerful that when they were brawling backstage that time with the Bucks.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that bathroom door opened and there was Cassidy. Same. Santana's going under the ring to grab a table for the fight. He pulls out a ladder, and Orange Cassidy is laying on top of the ladder. With his hands in his pockets, just like... gives him the thumbs up. And just like before, Santana scoops it back under the ring. He's like, and walks around the other side and grabs a chair, whatever. That's so stupid. And it's so hilarious.
Right.
Wrestling.
There's not a person in the WWE's creative squad that would understand at all why that's funny.
Yeah.
But there were 6,000 people in that spot laughing their asses off at
That's
it.
what I'm saying, dude. And well, it was like, Josh Raymond, who was in here last episode from Independence Pro Wrestling. He said, there's a saying, funny doesn't make money, but he's got a job, and, there's a lot of guys who don't. So, and...
Let me give a shout out to my friend John and I were talking about comedy wrestling here pretty recently.
Yeah.
Can anybody make an argument for somebody other than Colt Cabana being considered the all-time best comedy wrestler?
I don't know too much about Colt Cabana.
Boom Boom. The classic. Honestly, that makes sense, though. He's been almost completely on the indies and across the seas. Okay. Well,
I actually saw him at a pay-per-view, I think.
he's in NWA right now. He's
Yeah.
their...
No.
He's their...
They're like secondary, the national champion or whatever. they call
Yeah,
it.
not the North American, but...
Yeah. I think it's the NWA National Champ.
After watching a little bit more Power, I do like Colt Cabana.
Yeah.
That's my introduction to him is in NWA right now.
He does a real fun combo of like British. He's primarily like a British technician type. Mm-hmm. He brings in a lot of comedy, and he'll occasionally dip into some like hard, like strong style type shit.
Yeah. But there's so much wrestling on right now that it's an awesome time to be a fan again because literally it's offering you anything you could be looking for. But that's why I wanted to touch on that because it was just so random that my brother brought that up and I asked him, I was like, oh, do you watch All Elite? He's like, yeah, I heard about it and, it interested me and, just check it out and yeah, it's cool. He's like, it's different, and that's like what we were saying, like these random ass Orange Cassidy spots where it's like, what the hell? And the fact that they're doing it with Ortiz, now that's the second time he's done that.
Right.
That's a great spot. If you can just come up with like creative ways to keep doing that, he sells it perfectly. And
I mean, they are like the he's not in a tag team, but he might as well be. He's managing sort of the best friends.
He's in a faction.
So we could say that they're all in that pool of like main event tag people. They're going to keep bumping into each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every 2 or 3 months, you just pull a little funny thing like that. That'd be amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, I do too.
And like I said, I think that's why I like All Elite Wrestling. That's why my favorite wrestling show right now is All Elite.
Easily.
I think the best talent in terms of wrestlers and storylines and everything has to go to NXT. And and it's funny because it's like for the first time in my life, WWE isn't like, I guess NXT is technically a part of WWE, but I'm talking about the main storyline. I'm talking about Raw and SmackDown. They're on the 3rd and 4th list, and that's
easily
never happened in my life. And so to me, it's super interesting.
Well, and now though too, you don't have to be looking at TV. So then, if you just want to jump online, you've got instant access to MLW, which we've mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
PWG comes up again. I'm always going to bring up PWG.
Yeah.
Ring of Honor is floating around. Impact is floating around.
Yep.
NWA is floating around.
Oh. Yep.
Right. So I mean, I'm going to take Raw and SmackDown because I do watch at least a little bit of most of those. I'm going to put them at least like 7 or 8 or 9 on my list. I haven't watched a full episode in months.
It's painful.
I watched the
I
just watched
them
like
because
what's going on. I kind of know the main storylines, but I don't even watch it right now.
Yeah, I was at a point where I was paying for Hulu for $1 a month, and I still wasn't watching WWE, either of the shows, to which why I bought it. I also am not too fond of the idea of waiting. It comes out Friday is when SmackDown airs on Fox.
Yeah, they're in Detroit tonight.
Well, they do a weird split though, where you can see on the network. I think you can see it the next day, but it's condensed. It's like a 60-minute version.
Yeah.
But then on Hulu, on Friday they release the full version. It's some weird thing.
Well, Friday they have it on Fox, and then on Monday they release it on Hulu.
So SmackDown?
For SmackDown.
Oh, God, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew there was an NXT delay.
Yeah, the NXT delay is, I think, making it available on Friday.
Yeah.
So I'm catching, It's
just
a messed
like
up
every
thing.
decision they make is just pushing them further and further away from what modern wrestling fans want.
Yeah.
Like every decision has just been a clusterfuck.
The network is supposed to have everything available the next day, but it has it a month later also in that same vein. So it's just a goddamn mess.
Right down to the last video game. Holy crap.
Oh, golly, WK 2020, that game.
It's like, I think it's won some awards for glitchiest game in the last 5 years.
Oh, yeah, it should not have come out. I mean, they had so many things that they were so excited about for that game, and then once it hit, it was just glitch upon glitch.
Trash
upon
mode.
Glitch. It's already a very clunky game. I bought WK 2018, 2019, and I think 2017, the one a couple years before that. All of them are clunky as all get out, and WK 2016. So, I mean, I've played these games. They're all extremely rigid and clunky.
I think what they really need to do, in my opinion,
Yeah.
and you think about the future of video gaming, you're going to have the PS5 coming out, the X-Tangle.
The X-Tangle.
What?
The Xbox, it's like a rectangle.
X-Tangle.
Cube thing.
Okay.
And
Okay. I've not seen this X-Tangle.
it's interesting looking.
Tangle of X's.
But
That's what I thought.
I keep thinking about it, and I'm like, man, why wouldn't
Or
you just
GFX's.
take a break? Okay, it's not WrestleMania. It doesn't have to come every year. Take a break. Create a monumental video game. Okay, take 2-3 years. Build this bad boy up. Make sure all the glitches are out of it. Make sure it's got all sorts of modes on it. You got, the creative Just make the ultimate wrestling video game, and then as rosters change, as things change, you can make additions, you can upgrade it. You know, every time you log on, you're like, oh.
Weren't you just talking about this the other day?
Yeah, I was talking about that the other day.
Were you? That's fun.
T is not a fan of that business model, as I recall.
No, I am a fan of that model. If you don't make it a fee, like there's a variety of different.
Oh yeah,
things.
no doubt.
So I mean, every year they come out with a new NFL or Madden 2K20 or 2K18
Right.
or whatever, whoever owns whatever. Yeah, I know they're different franchises and different companies. Get off my dick. But if you have a subscription to a game, you say you buy, all right, I'm buying Madden 2000, and then now that is the game that I own, and I'm willing to pay an additional $20 a year or whatever it may be to download the updated roster and updated stats for those individuals, I'm all for it. Or I pay $20 and I have access to online play and also download it. If I don't so choose to download it, then I don't download that updated patch, but I have to keep everybody along the same line. Say I'm playing as the Vikings for Minnesota, they have the same stats of 98 that I had that I really much enjoyed. I can keep that indefinitely if I just pay the $20 and then I keep everybody else on the same 98 stats. Now, if I was to update and buy a WK 2020 for WWE, I'd be along those same lines. Same thing with UFC. If I was to buy a UFC game and then update everybody's skill set, I would be all for that. I don't like the idea of re-releasing a game with minor updates or with additional features to a game and then calling it a brand new game. That's like releasing a Game of the Year edition and then saying it's a brand new game. That's not a brand new game to
Right.
me. It's the same fucking
Like
game.
a repackaging or
It's
something.
a repackaging of it. That same thought process comes to my mind when it comes down to artists releasing best hits or greatest hits and then adding a new song on that greatest hits and saying it's a new album. No, it's the fucking not. Eagles, I'm calling you out, you fucking Eagles. That is not how you win the greatest goddamn hits. Okay.
I didn't know it was a competition, first off, although it should be because they're not winning.
Okay, the Eagles, what the fuck?
Thank
Okay.
you. But no, that goes right back to what we were saying a couple minutes ago. I mean, they can get away with that crap because they're selling it to this mainstream of people who aren't music fans. They're just normal people who just kind of like to listen to music once in a while.
Yeah, and they'll buy an album and they'll be like, oh, hey, it's got all the songs I like on it.
Hey.
Bah!
Nickelback.
Nickelback.
I always come back to, I can't stop thinking about WWE being the Nickelback of wrestling. It's just...
Speaking of Jump Tuck, when it comes down to wonderful things, New Japan Pro Wrestling, I believe that they have a pay-per-view coming up on January 5th and 6th, or 4th and 5th.
Is it Kingdom?
Kingdom. Yes.
Wrestling Kingdom is a 2-day WrestleMania in Japan. It's the biggest thing every year.
It is so glorious.
How can you even watch it? Is it on YouTube?
No.
Nah, you
no,
gotta buy the stream.
Yep, you got to buy the stream.
Okay.
You sign up for NewJapanProWrestlingWorld.com, I believe that their website is, and then it redirects you.
Okay.
But definitely jump on that because it is going to be fucking glorious because Will Ospreay is going against, who?
I'm not caught up to speed on...
I think it's Ibushi.
I think you're right.
No, Ibushi won the G1 tournament. He's going to challenge Okada for the title. That might be on night 2.
Okay.
But they don't do a thing where they don't do it where like some people are on night 1, some people are night 2. If you're a main eventer on night 2, you're probably in a tag match night 1.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
But I think that's the big one was Okada defending the title versus Ibushi.
Yeah, that's
Ibushi
the
having
first.
won G1.
That's sorry to interrupt. That is the Osprey versus Takahashi.
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 Is the
Yes.
Catman.
IWGP Junior Heavyweight.
He's been on the shelf for a real long time, like 6-9 months. Takahashi had surgery.
That's the thing. That man can take a bump. I am scared of him taking bumps, and Ospreay will put him through the ringer on some bumps too.
You know what's
Yeah.
wild though about Ospreay? We talk Ospreay shit in here all the time. I wonder how many people have ever even seen this dude because
Dude,
he had the opportunity. There's not many people who know like wrestling, who would say that Ospreay is anything less than like the second best guy on the planet.
Yeah.
I got him right up at number 1, easy. I don't know how to compare anybody to that dude.
Well,
But he takes the craziest looking bumps and does the craziest moves.
Yeah.
But he's so good that they never look out of control.
No.
I never see him do anything less than
No.
perfect. It's wild.
well, this is going to be huge. The Wrestle Kingdom one because Osprey and Takahashi. That's the junior heavyweight.
Yeah, the junior heavyweight.
The 2 matches that are headlining.
Jericho Tanahashi.
Yeah, Jericho Tanahashi. But I was gonna say, Ospreay's gonna lose
Because
because they're gonna push him for
they're
the
going to move him
American.
up. They're going to move him up.
Yeah.
I think so too. He's going to start gaining some weight and move up to heavies.
He's going to either go towards the heavyweight for American or and be the push for America and then start challenging for shit in America, or he's going to go for the heavyweight IWGP for the next at Dominion.
Well, Tanahashi and Jericho are second to last match in night number 2.
Yeah.
Now, this is what's super interesting. So, the IWGP Intercontinental title, that's Jay White versus Tetsuya Naito.
Naito's going to take it.
So,
I think so too.
Okada versus Ibushi
Okada!
is the
main
heavyweight
event.
match. The headline, the main event for night number 2 is a double gold dash match. The winner of Okada and Ibushi for the IWGP heavyweight title against the winner of the White and Naito winner for the IC.
Holy
so it's IC versus heavyweight. That's night number 2. That's the main event.
So Okada Ibushi is night 1?
Yeah, it's Ospreay, Takahashi, Jay White, Naito, Okada, Ibushi. Those are the last 3 matches on night 1.
So for anybody who's not watching any Japanese wrestling,
My
let's
eyes
just
are
do this real
wide
quick.
and
So-
jaw is dropped.
So let's call Okada the Rock of Japanese wrestling, because he is.
Yep, Okada.
Let's go ahead and call Ospreay like, I don't even know, the Omega of Japan.
Now,
At this point in time?
at this point in time now, but for skill set and comparative, jumping topics. Y'all ever see that match that he did for World Cup 17 for against Rey Mysterio?
Oh, yeah.
Will Ospreay and man.
Yeah.
Man.
Ospreay's every match is a friggin' highlight reel.
It is a highlight
He's
reel.
unbelievable.
Okay, for him from man. Oh god.
well, then
anyway,
you got the
The point I was making is that lineup
Yeah.
is like having The Rock versus Stone Cold if WrestleMania was on 2 nights, on
Yeah.
night 1.
right.
And then having the winner of that go on to face like Hogan versus Andre. It really is.
no,
Like,
Joe,
that sounds
and-
crazy, but that's what it's like.
Well, and it's crazy too because Archer and Moxley are wrestling for the United States title.
Texas Deathmatch, baby.
Yeah, and then
Oh my god.
Then the next night,
Wrestling!
Whoever wins that has to face Juice Robinson for the title.
Oh!
There's your Robinson.
There's
See,
the-
I know you're
oh
low.
my God.
There's his revenge match against Moxley, right?
Yeah.
So Moxley's going to take night 1
That
most
makes
likely.
sense. They're
Oh yeah,
wrap
he's gonna
that
take.
up.
then-
yeah.
That's nice.
See, that's insane. So we're going to have to get that. We're going to have to get that feed.
People kept
'Cause-
talking about whether there was going to be a working relationship between NJPW and AEW,
Yeah, there was talk of that at one point in time.
and they keep looking at Jericho's involvement and
Omega, Moxley.
or Moxley's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if they both lose, and it sounds like they should,
They will.
that could be them wrapping up that working relationship, and that might be the kibosh on that for a while, unless they do work something out.
Well, yeah, there was talk of that for a little bit, and then there was talk of them pushing for the American brand in the United States, and then there was that whole talk of WWE trying to buy. There was a slow murmur of them trying to buy out some stuff with New Japan.
And then just
Yeah.
today, I heard that NJPW released a blurb saying they don't intend to show their product in North America in 2020. There's all kinds
Really?
of weird, like, global wrestling politics at play. I'm telling you, when the Bucks and Omega left,
yeah, that put a
it just
rift.
sent a fissure all the way through non-WWE wrestling. I mean, Ring of Honor stopped working with certain companies, Impact stopped working with certain companies, NJPW stopped working with certain companies. Like, they really just blew the whole thing up. It's crazy.
That and night number 2 is Jushin Thunder Liger's retirement match.
Yeah, he is retiring. He actually had
Probably.
him. Huh?
Who's he fighting? Ishii?
Him and Sano are going up against Lee and Takahashi.
Oh, wow.
Takahashi. Yeah, Liger had a match a couple months ago, actually, in Detroit.
Hiramu Takahashi.
Or Liger. What?
Yeah.
What?
Different Takahashi.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Liger, though, had a match out in Detroit at a bar where they had tacos and
Takohashi.
Takahashi. That should have been his gimmick for the night.
Sorry. Maybe it was. Who knows?
Pass that up.
yeah, passed that one up on accident. Yeah, I'm excited as all get out for Wrestle Kingdom. That seems like that's going to be a worthwhile venture. Every year, it is an astounding set of matches.
If you're a fan of work rate wrestling, this is the beauty of Japanese wrestling. You don't need to know anybody's names, and you don't need to know the story. You just watch the matches. I don't ever know more than maybe half the storylines going into Wrestle Kingdom, but I watch it with my friend John, and I'm like, nope, this was the best thing of the year, hands down.
And it starts the year off. That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
the 4th or 5th every year.
Yeah.
It's like the first couple weeks of January every year.
Yep. And that G1 tournament leading up to it, this year especially, most people are saying this is the best G1 hands down. I think something like between 7 and 10 5-star matches came out of that tournament.
Yeah.
If you can go back and find it. You know what? Daily Motion actually posts for free a majority of those matches from the G1.
Rock and roll.
Go back and look at that. Moxley had some killers. Ospreay's matches were all killers. Yeah.
Man, yeah. Ospreay is one heck of a fiend, man. Oh, sorry, wrong brand. One heck of a wrestler. One heck of a wrestler.
Either way, we're gonna have to watch that because that's a.
If not the night of, then the next, because I think it's like 3 o'clock in the morning our time.
The live run is
Yeah.
it's like 2 a.m. or something.
Yeah, and I mean I love y'all, but
Right.
no.
I guess that makes my decision.
Yeah, that's gonna be sick. So now, do they re-show that if you have the stream?
I think if you pay for the site, I think you can
Yeah.
probably it's like a on-demand kind of thing.
I think
Okay.
so. I do believe so. Yeah.
So worth it.
Yeah,
So worth
absolutely.
it.
That's a hell of a lineup.
Yeah, definitely.
Ibushi is one of my favorites on the planet. I've mentioned his name a few times. I think I sent you both the link of him wrestling the inflatable sex doll.
Oh God.
That's the reason you don't ever hear Cornette shitting on Ibushi the way he shits on Omega for wrestling that little girl.
Yeah.
Objectively
match.
speaking, I mean, Ibushi did a worse thing by wrestling the sex doll.
Yeah.
You don't hear him talking shit about Ibushi because guess what Ibushi will do? He'll come over and beat the living shit out of you, Cornette.
Yeah.
He
He'll
doesn't
come
have
over
the
and-
American wrestler respect for you
Yeah.
that Canadian has for whatever reason. But he's just absolutely amazing. And I would tell anybody to go back and do some research on he and Omega's old tag team, the Golden Lovers.
You mentioned that.
God, it's so heartwarming. There's been very few things in wrestling that have ever made me like legitimately cry from like just being emotionally moved. One of them was Bayley versus Sasha Banks in the main event at TakeOver Brooklyn when Bayley won the title from Sasha. Best women's wrestling match, hands down, I've ever seen. 5 stars,
Wow.
easy. And the other one was when I watched this backstory on the Golden Lovers of Omega and Ibushi. They push kayfabe so hard to this very day in Japanese culture
Yeah.
that when they put those two together as a tag team, I'm going to say like a decade ago, they slowly rose up through the ranks. They're both super athletic. They're outside the box thinkers. Like their matches are always really creative. Their tag team was tremendously successful. But when it was time for them to split and go on their own ways, it wasn't like a Sean and Marty thing. It was like two Seans. Like they both just blew up, right?
Yeah.
But in kayfabe land, they didn't have anything to do with each other in storyline mode anymore.
Yeah.
I think there was some bad blood. So they were told, you can't be seen together.
Wow.
And for like 5,
Kayfabe.
6, 7 years, these are people, they become like best friends, spend every day together on the road, and all of a sudden they're split up in real life.
Yeah.
So when there was an opportunity to cross their paths in kayfabe in the wrestling storylines, everybody in Japan knew it was more than just the story. They knew that they were now allowed to reunite as real friends outside of that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there was always a real subtle push of them potentially being either gay or a bisexual couple
Word.
in the team, with zero of any of that Chuck and whatever nonsense that WWF, Billy and Chuck.
Billy and Chuck.
This was just like, these two dudes are killing wrestling, and they're in a tag team, and they obviously love each other very, very much, period. No, there wasn't any sexual anything necessarily.
Right.
But it also wasn't necessarily not. And so when they got back together and they honestly wept when they met each other in the ring, there was just so many layers to it. Yeah, I just say go back and watch it. It's
Hell yeah.
That's wild.
I'm down.
There's very little in terms of storyline in American wrestling that would ever come close to matching a decade of storytelling like that. It's crazy.
Friendship is an astounding thing when it comes down to wrestling. Is that if you watch a lot of these relationships that bloom or establish themselves amongst the ranks of these wrestlers, they go through a lot together. As all of us fans of wrestling know, is that these cats are walking in and out of that ring at least 150, maybe 200 times a year because they are working consistently and they are amongst their friends who they are putting their lives on the line with and they're trusting on a regular basis.
Probably like the military in some ways.
Yeah, you're conditioned in a lot of different respects, and so that is definitely, I would say, a good correlation. I mean,
Being in a band is a little bit like that.
yeah, you get a lot of camaraderie there, and I do appreciate the level of emotion that is put into each of these folks. I mean, the name who will not be announced with winning his title along the lines of his brother in arms, hugging him at the end of WrestleMania 20. If I remember correctly, the numbers and such, that was astounding. That was moving. That brought me to tears. That was one of the moments that made me cry, and I watched it
That was
last
on my
week.
list. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the things that you got to say is that there is something that I've always said is that when I watch an actor play a role, to the point in which I believe that is who they are, then I've all the magic is gone. It's real. It's real to me, and that's something that transcends levels, and that's a true animation or true characterization of that individual. If you're a dick in person, you're going to be a great dick on the stage.
MJF.
Yeah. So being able to see that and being able to see just the true sincerity in these folks on a regular basis, and then show their emotions. I mean, they're people. They're gonna let it out. So I'm interested to walk down that road of the Golden Lovers. I mean, very, very much so, because I think truly that a friendship is something that also gets tossed around in WWE. Fuck this Lana storyline. Just throwing that out there. Just because I'm thinking like he doesn't know what he's doing at times. And
Talking about Vince?
Yes.
You know, they were talking about the recent Roman Reigns nonsense with Baron Corbin. And Baron Corbin sending down a person in the dog mascot suit about 3 weeks ago. Yeah. And they changed the Roman Reigns song. As stupid as it is, I have to admit, I had a tiny bit of a chuckle. He was playing the remix of Roman's entrance music, and he replaced all the chugs with little chihuahua barks. Yeah. So it was like, ruff, 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 ruff. You know what I mean? Yeah. Ridiculously stupid, but for some reason I was like, okay, fine, you got me. Like, that's kind of,
okay, you got me.
It's kind of funny. But like, word has it, every person in the entire company knows that that's cringeworthy, except there's Vince backstage cackling his ass off. And again, let's go back to how weird this guy is. Like, does he really think it's funny? Does he think it's funny that he's humiliating a person in a dog suit? Like, what's funny about this?
What's funny about this?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's strange.
We'd have the best friends on AEW, hugging each other during their matches. That's really great.
Yeah, which is which every week is an affront to Vince and the big end of kayfabe with everybody breaking kayfabe and hugging one another and all that jazz. Maybe that's just me having a light bulb moment, but I don't know. I don't know if Vince likes hugs, but I assume that he doesn't. And I'm going to run with the thought that them hugging every single week is an affront to him and saying, fuck you, man, I like hugs.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that too, again, it's something different. Again, you turn on WWE, you know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yes,
I'm
I
not
do.
surprised by anything they do. I'm not shocked by any of the winners. I have people who I want to see win, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Nothing about their product shocks me.
You know what they just did? They just had a non-televised title switch for the first time in ages.
No, it's not the first time in ages.
And it blew up all over the internet.
They had one last year.
Did they?
Yeah, they had it at a house show.
Oh, wait. Was it AJ Styles for the U.S. title?
Yeah.
Funny
Andrade just won the U.S. title off of Rey Mysterio at MSG.
Yeah.
And that was actually the other point made, was that the last time it happened, it was also for the U.S. title. So that is kind of funny. But I think that might be them trying to recreate
it's like,
mystery.
well, then, I mean, I've seen some. I was privy to one storyline change that they set up for the next night, and I always thought this was really cool. I went to an event called In High Gear, and I think it was the main event for the tag team titles.
It's called Full Gear. It was an AEW pay-per-view, right?
No. Okay. No, it was In High Gear. It was a traveling tour they did. It was at the Palace of Auburn Hills the night before Monday Night Raw, because it was a Sunday show. And it was just kind of unique because you got to see a major heel turn right in front of you that wasn't televised, and it was wild. It was the tag title match with Yokozuna and Owen Hart versus the Allied Powers, British Bulldog and Lex Luger. During the match, Luger gets tossed to the ropes and knocks Davey Boy Smith all the way to the guardrail and just smokes the guardrail, right? And Davey Boy Smith makes a slow crawl back onto his feet, gets to the apron. Luger's getting worked on. He's crawling towards Bulldog, looking for the hot tag. Right before he makes it, Bulldog pulls his hand away. And the crowd starts booing. Owen Hart starts doing a number on Luger. And then Bulldog jumps off the apron, walks back down towards the aisle, kind of takes like another turn, watches Luger get the shit kicked out of him, stands there for like a minute, turns around and walks back through the curtain. And I was like, holy crap.
That was the heel turn.
I was like, holy crap. Bulldog just freaking turned his back on Lex Luger. The next night on Raw, Bulldog approaches Big Daddy Cool on Diesel on Raw and says, tonight you and I are going to take on Owen and Yokozuna. I'm like, here's where he's turning heel on
Word.
TV. Boom,
Yeah.
Bulldog and Owen start.
That's one of those examples. A lot of people don't realize that they're testing out potential TV storylines
Yeah.
on the road. Because if they don't work, then whatever. Then
Oh
just
yeah, and he
those
caught
3,000
major
people
heat.
saw
As
it.
soon as he pulled his hand away, we were booing the shit out of him.
You know what's funny
So-
about it too? We had a good laugh about the fact that Moxley did the exact same thing to Pac about a month ago on AEW.
Yeah.
Except Moxley, we were both cheering for him.
You're
'cause
right.
He basically kicked him in the gut and gave him the DDT. He was like,
Yeah.
"Fuck you, I'm leaving because you're a butthole." And we were like, "Yeah, that's amazing." But here we are back. In the old days, the same stuff was. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just interesting to look
Yeah,
back
it-
and see how things are completely
Absolutely.
reversed.
And it was just super cool because we were like, holy crap. So I remember the next night on Raw when I was watching, I was like, nobody knows he's a bad guy yet. And it was like you had that. And that's the beauty of what at a time when there was no internet. You had the know-how.
Yeah.
Nobody else in the world knew except for the people that were in that building. So if you were in that building and you watched Raw the next night, you were like screaming at the TV like, he's a bad guy, don't believe him, because you knew. It's real to me, damn it.
It's real to me.
Do either of you get any kind of a kick out of how they've been forced to modernize, like work in the crowd now with modern media? I think about how Becky Lynch really got as popular as she did. It happened on TV, but a lot, I would say just as much of it happened on Twitter.
There's been
Yeah,
a lot of
absolutely.
discouragement, though, on that. And with Vince, kind of from what I've been hearing, has been discouraging the behaviors online and things
Well,
like that because
yeah, but-
he doesn't have control over it.
But see, this is my point. The reason the Attitude Era blew up is because we had the character of Vince McMahon, the boss, on the air saying, don't do this, don't do that. And we loved it when Stone Cold did the exact opposite of what he said to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you take that mentality and plug it into 2019, it makes perfect sense that somebody would be, quote unquote, cutting a promo on Twitter. Vince would say, don't do that. And then you would look like the same rebel by doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
Yeah.
that's true, but
I don't know. For me, it's just, I think it's WWE's inability to have no chill that kind of ruins it for me because everything about their product seems forced. Everything that they do that's supposed to be dramatic or sentimental or whatever, it's not. It's too forced.
not
Nothing about it
genuine.
is natural because, like you said, Davison, they've got they've got 30 writers.
That was Davison,
And
but yeah.
you've got a bunch of people telling you what to do. And like I said, they're way more about the entertainment than they are wrestling.
isn't it preposterous, though, to think, I think about a funnel, and I think at the very top, there's 30 writers, and then it starts to slide down the funnel to maybe like 5 or 6 types, and then they pass it down. It's always going to go past Vince. Anything on the air. We use words in here sometimes like they let that on the air.
Yeah.
We need to always call it exactly what it is. He put it on the air.
Yeah.
He chose that for the air.
And
Yeah.
I just like I don't know, and like I said, you can call me a fanboy or whatever you want, but I just like the way AEW does it better. Like Jericho posted on Instagram, he was like, happy Christmas and holidays to everybody everywhere. I love every member of the race we call human, and thank you all for supporting and following me over the ridiculous thoughts and actions I've made for the past decade. And like Aubrey, the ref says,
Aubrey Edwards.
yeah, she was like, Merry Christmas, Chris. You're all right sometimes, I guess. And he just answers. He's like, F off, Edwards. Save your ass kissing for Cody or Tony Khan. You know?
Exactly.
So it's like, it's more comical. It's not like, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. Anytime they try to do something funny, it's so forced and not natural. And you can tell that these guys are trying to be funny
Right.
rather than just being funny. Like, you don't need 30 people telling you what to do.
The reason this is why it's always killed me. Those people are only on TV because they found some way prior to Vince McMahon to get themselves over in some way.
Yeah.
You're not there unless you're an incredibly successful person at what you're doing, unless Vince has some idea of turning you into one of those people.
Yeah.
But so then to take those people who have already blown the world up without WWE's platform and without all this money pushing you and say, okay, great, you made it here. Now let's crush you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take away everything you know how to do. Let's take away everything that's worked. And then we're going to... He ruins careers and lives.
Well, it's like with Roman Reigns being a part of, and now that Roman Reigns kind of came back and isn't in the main picture and really, survived cancer, it's like, well, really, how do you boo a guy who survived cancer? You know, I'm still not a major fan of him as a solo wrestler, but when he was in, you know, when he was in Shield, I was like, I can dig this. He's not the center of attention. He's part of an elite group of guys. I liked him.
The Shield never stopped being cool, by the way, to me.
Shield? Oh, yeah, Shield's always awesome.
They never, to me, took any kind of a turn towards cheese. They
No,
were always...
never. And that's actually was like one of the reasons I kind of was paying attention, because I thought it was a cool faction. I thought what they were doing was sweet and different, and it was fun. And, I mean, even if you look back at the last week tonight with John Oliver, where he talks about WWE, how he plays clips from Roman Reigns, who's supposed to be the top babyface, and for 8 minutes, the crowd won't let him say a word because they're telling him, "You Roman, you suck. F off, Roman. Roman sucks." It's just like he hasn't said one word, and the crowd's completely against him.
And he wasn't even a heel.
No, he was the
he's
top
been a good guy
babyface
for
in the
the
company.
last forever.
Right.
That was the point John Oliver was making during his segment. Was like, he's supposed to be a good guy.
Yeah.
And listen to this.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's the number one thing about wrestling fans.
Well, no. See, that's where I get pissed off. You don't hear fans doing that to the number one guys in AEW.
No, not at all.
There's a reason for that. Because they were choosing that person.
Yeah.
Therefore, the person wound up on top.
And that was his point. He's like, that's the thing about wrestling fans. They will tell you how they feel.
Okay, because see, the way WWE spins it is, that's the thing about wrestling fans, ...
Yeah.
They don't really know what they want. They're just going to complain about everything, so let's just give them what we want to give them.
Oh, yeah. No, John Oliver straight up said, like, there's one thing that Vince can't ignore. It's the fans. Because when they made a huge mess about, hey, you know, these women are doing just as much work and they're not getting the equal pay. They're not getting enough screen time. Like, give divas a chance. And then they were like, okay, we hear you. And then they had the women's movement, which...
Yeah, had.
Yeah, exactly.
Past tense, because
Yeah,
look at it
exactly.
now. Yeah.
Exactly. But that's what he pointed out. Was like, that's one thing Vince can't ignore is the fans. And then he was like, listen to this.
Well,
You know?
I would beg to differ. He absolutely ignores the fans.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
9 out of 10. And then when it becomes dire, they'll finally steal some ideas from other shows, and they have more money, so they can make them bigger and better ideas. Going back to what you said a little bit ago, T, NXT actually did win that 18-35 demo.
They did.
I don't think it was the Christmas, and there was the one before Christmas.
I'm interested
But
to see what that Christmas.
I think it was the first time that had occurred. And I don't know that has to be some big warning
That
sign
might
or
have
anything,
been
but
what Mark was talking about, that 80,000 people that were.
Yeah, but then again, Rhea Ripley was going to win the world title.
which is
So-
an amazing match, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that show was killer. Opened with Cole versus the Demon, Balor.
Yeah.
That was the first match on the show for the world title.
Yeah.
And then it closed with Baszler losing the title to Ripley.
Yeah.
Killer. Both those matches are killers. Yeah, NXT's getting it turned around now, which doesn't surprise me.
Right.
But it does bum me out they had to kickstart it by bringing in main roster. I just think that's a little bit of a cheat. But, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Let's just hope that it doesn't become a situation in which Vince keeps changing his mind every 2 weeks, but then he gets the hands on the NXT roster and starts changing things up like that. That's one of my big worries, particularly with Vince, is that he always has this idea that it's a new, shiny thing, and he keeps it for 2, 3, 4 weeks. And also the other side of that, when it comes down to poking fun or making comments about certain wrestlers or trying to make certain folks a focal point, it's at the demeaning of them. It's not about a competition of strength. It's not a competition of whatever their abilities are or whatever their skill set is. It is a competition based off of who can humiliate the other person the most. And that has been a problem that's been a part of WWE for a while. Something that I saw a couple weeks ago, which was the backstage, the Fox News show in which Booker T was cutting a promo against somebody. And I believe it was Renee that was commenting about it, and she said, "You have to build." It was either Renee or Paige, and I'm actually gonna lean on Paige on this one. And she had said, "You got to build the person up. You've got to make sure that when you start tearing the person down, it's after you've already established their presence and how much you are going to be able to achieve over them, because they are themselves that your opponent." a force to be reckoned with.
Jericho's really good at that.
Jericho is very good with that. Because it's an acknowledgement of skill. It's an acknowledgement of what you are going to be doing after the fact. Because it's nothing to step over a crack. It's a lot to step over a mountain. So if you are building that mountain yourself, then you have the ability to then set the standard accordingly.
Sure.
And that's something that I feel consistently becomes an issue and that they contend with, is that the only way that they can get over is, as I said before, cheap heat, insult the crowd. You sent a message the other day, or you did, Davison, along the lines of saying, this city sucks, and so-and-so's here, and it's Seth Rollins laughing or something along those lines. It's just...
Hey, local city. Hey, city, your local sports team sucks.
Yeah.
Ooh, he is a true heel.
Yes. So it's just like, come on, do more.
cheap.
And going back to what you said about Jericho, too, just the little things that he's willing to do for other people, like Jungle Boy Jack Perry. The fact that
boy's going to be a fucking champion.
And the fact that he won, even though it wasn't in a match, he allowed him to get the 3 count on him.
Yeah.
Even though it was not even a match, it wasn't even during a match.
He's still got
he scored the 3 count, so he showed that he could pin Jericho on the 3 count. It made the crowd pop, and Jericho, of course, was selling it perfectly.
And he's really new in his career, Jungle Boy, I mean.
Yeah.
So him even just lasting the 10 with the champion is a big deal.
Beating him.
Yes, it is.
Now-
Technically.
The youngest champion in AEW history.
Yeah, damn right. So when Cornette was panning the show, as he always will, he was quick to point out, just like in the thumbnail on his review, it was a picture of a participation award being given to one Jungle Jack, right? And it immediately shifted me right back into my early 80s thinking of Cornette used to participate in all of these climb a ladder and grab $2,000 in a bag at the top of the ladder matches. No pins, no submissions, no I wins, no I quits.
Yeah.
You climb a ladder, you grab a bag.
Yeah.
And he's going to take a dump on Modern Wrestling, having somebody outlast the champion, which is a classic one, by the way. They've been
It's
doing
a
it for
classic
decades.
standard.
But he has to take a shit on it just because he's Jim Cornette.
Right.
This is why I hate this man.
Well, he can do all the talking he wants. He's not on TV or YouTube.
Yeah, he is.
Now he's on YouTube. He's on his own YouTube.
Oh, he has officially declared his he's retired from announcing in general because wrestling sucks now.
Okay.
He's
that's
another
good.
one of those
But
guys.
But he'll continue to talk about it.
He's taking his mic and going home. Is
Yes,
what he's
exactly.
doing.
He was kicked out of the party, and now he's telling everybody how bad the party sucked.
From the outside. Yes.
The
party sucks,
The
man.
party's lame.
And I love being able to watch it happen. This piece of shit.
He loves Wendy's.
I hate him.
Oh, man. Well, before we get into our most impactful moments, you also wanted to talk about a short list of Murder, Marry, Bang. Let's get into it.
I'm not one to celebrate the Christian holidays,
Yes.
but if you want to have a little bit of end of year fun, let's do a couple rounds of. Are we going to call it Murder, Marry, Bang?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Language.
So 3 names. I've said the F word so many times. This already is not even funny.
Yeah.
So you're going to pick one that you think you would like to bang once, one you would like to get married to, and one you just rather kill. We have all collected a small group of people to present. Should I start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Start easy. We're going to go with The New Day. You have the options of Xavier, Kofi Kingston, and Big E.
Oh, man. Murder, Marry, Bang.
That's right.
Murder Kofi.
Murder Kofi.
Oh, man.
Marry Xavier, whom I've met. Nice man.
I hear that. He's
Nice
got a
man.
PhD.
He does have a PhD.
He'll
He's a
treat you
very
right.
educated man. And I mean Big E. I mean, have you seen the man move his hips? I mean,
Oh, I know where Big E lands on my list.
Frankly, it's a truth fact, right?
Right.
So you're saying you're going to bang Big E.
I mean, you might bang me. I'm just saying. What becomes before E?
If you say yes, I'm in, you better be more clear, because if Big E gets an idea in his head, you're going to go along for the fucking ride.
I mean, Big D.
That dude is a monster. What about you, Mark?
Okay,
New
if
Day.
you're going to murder, marry, bang on Big Day, you're going to have to go... you're going to have to go murder Xavier, And it's nothing personal. It's just that I know a lot of internet people.
You just don't want
who
your
are
ass
super-
getting kicked when it comes down to video games and education.
Yeah, that's it.
Clearly threatened by the X-Man.
Yeah, no doubt.
Clearly threatened.
I'd say, yeah, I'd have to take the route of E. You'd have to marry Kofi. Fun guy, keep you entertained. Bang. You got to go Big E because you got that
Will
big
you
E.
marry me, man?
Oh, man, don't you know? This is so fantastic.
Aren't your parents from Nigeria? Did
There
you grow
I
up in
go.
Boston? What the
Yeah.
hell's happening right now? All I know is I want to marry Big E. After watching him on Up, Up, Down, Down for a while,
Yeah.
I was telling T, if you want to go back and waste an hour or two of your life,
Yeah.
find the 2017 UFC 3 tournament among WWE people on the Up, Up, Down, Down tournament. Mm-hmm. It's so goddamn funny, and Big E wins. He's so hilarious. So
Nice.
That's my husband. I can't believe I'm about to say this. I'd probably kill Kofi.
Yeah.
I could have some interesting, intellectual conversations with Xavier, play some video games.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I said I'm marrying Big E. I'm going to murder... No, I take it back. I'll bang Kofi, I'll kill Xavier.
Damn.
That's a hell of a night.
Skirt.
I'm going to bang Kobe, and then I'm going to kill him.
So, I know where I stand.
Wow.
Sorry, I went a little sideways there.
I really hope we can put that on the radio, because I really want to put that on the radio.
Okay, next.
Okay, now I just compiled a short list. Well, mine was more exact, but okay. What? So no,
It's a
I
short
made
list,
a,
more exact. I'm talking about.
I made my own personal one,
Hornswoggle
but
and-
here, yeah, Hornswoggle, yeah. Okay, if you're gonna do
don't
three,
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that
could-
man has a fucking baby's arm that could fit up.
right?
you. Wow.
Two of them.
Anyway, next song.
Maybe three. Go ahead.
God damn it. We're going to go Lita, Trish Stratus, Stacy Keibler.
Dang.
Murder Stacy Keibler. No, murder Lita. I know what she did. I was there.
How was it?
Hardy.
It was.
Wow. I know. So you said you're gonna kill Lita over the mistreatment of the Matt Hardy?
It was a long con. I mean, there was a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of roads to catching Edge's D, and she took the short one.
Yep. So, yep. Kill Lita. I know you're a Hall of Famer. I appreciate you. Marry Stacy Keibler. Bang Trish. Is it Trish or Lita?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Trish.
Trish. Yeah.
So you're married to Keibler?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember what she looks like.
I think I would marry Keibler because I do remember what she looks like. She's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
She seems nice. I mean,
I don't have any issues with Lita necessarily. I can understand trading in
hey, she broke a heart or
trading in
two.
a Ford Pinto for a DeLorean. I mean, just want to get back to the future. And when she was in bed, she would scream 1.21 gigawatts. Oh my God. I mean,
Getting these pumps in at 88 miles an hour.
88 miles per hour. I'm marrying Keibler.
I go to work.
She dated George Clooney, for God's sake.
Wow, she did?
She's good enough for Clooney. She's good enough for me.
I mean, that's true.
That's
I mean,
interesting.
Clooney married
And
a doctor
I'm killing Lita.
because she hurt Hardy. Yeah.
And Trish, I guess I'm just going to have one meaningful night with.
Yep. There you go.
What about you, T?
Oh, yeah,
Those, did you already say?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're going to kill Lita.
yeah. She hurt my heart.
That's right. So who's your three?
Sheamus, Cesaro, Enzo.
Oh my God.
Thought I'd go easy. Well,
Oh my God. Yeah.
Sheamus, Cesaro, Enzo.
yep.
I don't think this is going to be a very popular take. I might marry Enzo.
Oh my gosh.
What?
I know he nonstop talks. He's always talking shit. I think he's pretty funny. I think almost everything he says, I don't care about whether it's true. I think he's funny.
He is funny, but he's
good on the mic.
mouth.
Oh, of course he does. Well, think about what you just said. Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
You know what he's not?
You just learned
Couple
something.
haters.
You know what he's not when he's in bed? Soft.
And you can't teach that.
No, you
That's why
can't
I'm
teach
marrying
that.
that man.
7 foot tall, man.
I'm gonna
I
kill
think,
Sheamus. I hate that guy. I kill
You know
Sheamus.
what? I think
Bang
I'm right
Cesaro.
there with you.
What? Same?
Yeah, I think I would marry Enzo because he's entertaining.
Can you imagine having conversations
Cesaro
for
can
more
give
than
me
10
them
minutes with those other
Switzerland
two?
pumps, and Sheamus can just he can bro kick on out of here.
Yeah, he can spend 20 minutes in the sun and die of any number of things that people will die of in the sun. What about you?
I'd kill Enzo.
I can see why though.
Yeah, I'd have a wonderful, luxurious evening with Sheamus. Because I feel like there would be nice conversation and soft petting.
Soft.
Would that be like a hotel date or like an Oasis hot tub date?
It would be at a Hilton in Atlanta.
I almost said Hilton. Holy shit.
Yeah, very specific.
Yep.
I like the Hilton in Atlanta.
Good beds.
They're not for that. And then Cesaro, I'd spend the rest of my life with.
Oh, wow.
He'd lisp at me, but I don't have any S's in my name, so we're fine.
There you go.
Yeah, snake.
Nice.
Well, before we get into the most impactful moments in wrestling, let's go really quick around the table. Talk about your moments of the year really quick. What do you think are some big moments of the year so far in wrestling, T?
Big moment of the year that shook me and gave me shivers up and down my spine, I will tell you right here, right now, was the moment in which I heard over the loud mic at the AEW opening, "There's more than one royal family." That shook my life. Because I knew that AEW was a thing. And I was like, yeah, this is a thing. This is going to become big. This is going to be great. But when I heard that over the speakers and just this voice of a young god, I really felt so much better about what I was going to be tuning into, because I felt as though that it was somebody grabbing something that was their birthright. So
There's a little bit of a Game of Thrones vibe to that, isn't there?
There was.
He's like the unspoken, royal son.
He is, and it really got me. It really, really did. It made me cry on the inside. It made me sweat on the outside. It made me jump up and down. I felt so good about hearing that. And now every single time when Cody comes up from the dead center of every single AEW match, or every single time he comes out of the ring or out to the ring, there's that quote that said, "There's more than one royal family." I'm like, fucking yeah, there is.
Yeah.
And it feels good because, again, it's a scream to the whole system. It's a yell at, yo, it ain't just you. And that's something that I would also lean on with Triple H. As much as I love Triple H, I am worried that Vince will not let go of the reins and give it, no pun on Roman, but I feel as though that he really does need to give up that power in some respect to either allow him to do NXT indefinitely or take over something to steer the ship correctly.
This might sound weird, and I've almost mentioned it to both of you when we're watching on Wednesday nights. I've never seen Cody for just being Cody up until very recently. I saw him as the young dude that was Dusty's son when he had brown hair.
Yeah.
And then he got into, what was that group called, Legacy? When he was with Orton and DiBiase. Legacy?
Yeah.
And then he was that guy. And then he became Stardust, right?
Which he hated.
But then now when I see him with his blonde hair and stuff, it's taken me a real long time to finally see him as he is the quintessential Rhodes now.
Yeah.
I hadn't really seen him that way. And then finally it clicked for me at Waldo's one night. I was like, oh my God. And I may have said it out loud, if Dusty and Okada had a baby, Okada is in a dusty suit. There he is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, you're winning me over. I'm starting to see it for more what it is, and there is something romantic in that. In Dusty being on my Mount Rushmore and being demoted to wearing the yellow dots, and still keeping his dignity, still being a legend, and now having his sons rise back up. Yeah, there's a lot of meaning in that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing with dynasties that I would like to kind of touch on. With wrestling, there's always this appreciation or heir to the throne that's always kind of been there. That there's this expectation that if you were a wrestler, you have a kid, then your kid will be a wrestler or some way, shape, or form. It's a part of the family trade. It's a family business, and there's nothing wrong with that. the Rhodes family has had a very bumpy road of it. No pun intended on that, actually. Yeah. There's been a very rough go of things on different turns. And seeing how, and I've just now, over the last couple years, getting back into wrestling, have learned from good friends and people showing me the light when it comes down to Dustin and Dusty Rhodes and all those folks outside. I didn't know how dramatic or how big they were for a while.
Right.
But being able to see that in full fruition is the word I want to use.
Dusty was a bigger deal than Ric Flair for a long time.
Yeah.
People don't realize that.
Absolutely.
He really put Flair over. He and Harley Race back in the day.
Yeah.
Dusty was a global juggernaut. And he was an interesting one because he looked like the guy that was going to take the ring down and sweep the floor. He never looked like the big guy, you know?
Well, common man, you know?
Yeah.
Working hard with his hands.
Working Sapphire overtime.
Grandfather of a plumber.
Ultimate Warrior Supercut.
How many people are dynasties, though? I would like to just sit and think on that. Because, I mean, you got what?
Well, you got Cody Rhodes.
Flair.
When you say dynasty, do you just mean 2 generations, or what do you mean?
2 generations.
There's a lot of that going on.
There's a lot of them, but there's
2, 3, 5. I mean, you've got
very few 3. The Rock was a first, 3rd generation superstar.
Orton.
Is Orton a 3rd?
Orton's a 3rd.
Is that right?
Yes.
Charlotte's a 2nd.
Charlotte's a 2nd.
Bo Dallas is a 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
I love that Bo Dallas and The Fiend are brothers. It's my favorite. You both realize that, right?
What?
Oh, yeah.
Bo Dallas and The Fiend are blood brothers.
No.
You didn't know that? Yeah, they're both IRS's sons. They're both.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's wild.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think AEW is probably the biggest moment. The just Dynamite launching. The whole event of what their most recent pay-per-view event. Not All In.
Full Gear.
Full Gear. Most of that event, not only pretty solid, but I definitely say the Omega Moxley match was a stamp on the year in terms of just what they had to offer, what those 2 guys have to offer individually. Moxley is no longer the freaking in a freaking wife beater.
No.
Like, he is not a creation of Vince McMahon. He's his own person. He's believable now. He's full of piss and vinegar. And he showed, especially in that match against Omega, just how much business he means. And, props to Omega for, helping him achieve that as well.
I'd make Moxley number 1 with an asterisk in that company, right next to Jericho. The fact that they're going to go for the title next makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But the way they've used Moxley and built him, I'd put him right
real.
up there.
He's just real. He's in your face and he's real. And I think they've just done they've brought to light also wrestlers that I've never seen before. Lucha Bros, Santana and Ortiz, Young Bucks. These are dudes that, unless you're doing your research, they're not on TV every week. And these guys are coming out and they're having awesome matches every single week. Orange Cassidy. There's just so much. They're doing so many things different. And that's why I love it so much, because everything WWE has been doing has just been so over the top and just characterized and just too much.
Can you imagine what would happen if we got a hold of Vince? We're like, listen, man, there's a thing happening in the number 2 wrestling company in the country. You're going to want to get on this. You're going to want to grab 3 people. You want one big one, dress them up like a dinosaur.
Yeah, hear me out.
You're going to want a celebrity's offspring around 160 pounds, and then you're going to want somebody around 5 foot and 120. Go. And think about how ridiculously, offensively stupid he would make that. And then just think about how the organic beauty of the Jurassic Express is happening.
Oh, that dinosaur would have fucked that kid. That's how that would have turned out. It would have been a...
We'd give them premium prehistoric pumps, Playboy.
Paleolithic sex crafts on AEW.
Oh my gosh!
Really
for the year, I mean, obviously AEW has exploded.
Yeah. Versus 20. I mean,
why not?
He's a minor, like 65 million year old minor.
I mean, he was frozen in ember, so I mean, give or take. Obviously AEW is the news of the year. I would say though, outside of that, NXT rising up and destroying at Survivor Series.
Absolutely.
It was a huge step forward for them.
I was curious if you were gonna say that too, because that's probably second on my list too. Because and in every right, it wasn't just the fact that they did it, but they looked better at everything that was happening.
Yep.
Everything about that event that was good was because of NXT.
I hope that's the new format. Maybe they said it will be, but going forward, making all of those brand versus brand matches 3 corner matches. It meant that every iteration of the match was going to continue to be a triple threat.
Yeah.
I would dig that, but I'd be. I don't think that's going to stick. What was it? Last year, they had a killer entrance for their pay-per-views in which folks were coming out from the under rafters and they had their numbers next to them. I think it might have been Royal Rumble last year.
Yeah.
But they were coming up from underground and they had their number next to them, and then they were walking through the crowd like some form of a zigzag. And that was a very cool take because there was so much commentary on people saying, hey, we would love for the different staged change-ups and we would like for you to be in the audience and do something different. They did that for one. It changed everybody, and they were all excited about it. 2 weeks later, went right back to the same thing at the next pay-per-view.
But see, that falls right back into what you were saying, Mark, the idea of, what was it, the meme of the water pouring through the wall and then somebody put the duct tape on it?
Oh, yeah. It was the guy, and it was the water pouring through the wall, and it said WWE's need for creative and creative content, and then
the duct
the
tape
guy
was
with the duct tape in his hand, it said WWE, and then he slaps it on it and it says new championship belt.
Right. And to me, that's the same thing as an entrance, which is the same thing as a set design, which is the same thing as music. Like, the product is people in a ring, play fighting. That's the product. You're going to keep gift wrapping it differently, fantastic. But eventually, if a kid gets a potato for Christmas, they're going to be pretty pissed. Put in a different box, they're going to open it and be excited about it. On the 4th try, they're done.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of us are now. Like, okay,
exactly.
Great.
Red lights in a cage match.
Hey.
Yeah, basically.
Fucking
Bamboo
nonsense.
cage match. You can't see anything. Awesome idea.
So it was exciting to see, those people who we consider to be the closest thing to an AEW.
Yeah.
And again, it's because all those people who are popular on NXT rubbed elbows with the popular people from AEW all over the world for a long time.
Some of them are dating some of the same folks.
I know, isn't that fun? Now that meme that came out of Britt Baker appearing on NXT TV by accident.
Oh, yeah.
That's so funny.
What?
So she's Adam Cole's girlfriend in real life. When Adam Cole took that air raid bomb from the top of the cage at the last War Games, they showed her in the crowd. They didn't say it was her. Apparently, they just told the camera people, find the most concerned-looking, attractive woman in the crowd you can find, which is what they always do. If you think about it, they always find something like, oh, she's attractive. Well, this time it just happened to be Britt Baker from AEW, who's Cole's girlfriend. So that's become a bit of a joke, which is kind of fun. But
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, we're going to get into the main topic of the night. We're going to go down a list of 2 or 3 most impactful moments in wrestling history. There's a lot of things that have happened over multiple platforms, which have meant a little bit more on some level, but in shaping the business, there's been a lot that's happened, and I think different federations need to get their due as well. It's not just all WWE all the time. There's a lot of stuff that's happened, like I said, throughout multiple federations that have changed the landscape of wrestling. And I think, there's some that are very easy to call out. I think there's some obvious ones and then maybe some not so obvious ones. T, what do you think, in your opinion, is one of the most
impactful moments? I would say when Rey Mysterio removed his mask in WCW. No, that was a bother.
That was really dumb.
That was bad.
That was really bad.
Filthy animals.
Yeah, bad booking. I would say fans of Batman from '89 remember a particular scene in which Joker took over the TV sets.
Yeah.
In which he's sitting on 2 screens and then he takes his hand and then just waves over and then takes over another set of screens as if he's taking over a whole nother broadcast system. That has only happened, to my understanding, in a couple instances. One of which was when WCW was taken over by Vince McMahon, in which he said, do you think that you're supposed to be watching WCW? You should be watching WCW, but I'm not with WCW. See, what you will be watching this evening, and that was one of their last broadcasts when they had that huge debate, and then they were trying to be bought out and all that jazz. That was one of the things that was a big shaker. Along the same lines of earth-shattering, like you had mentioned a couple weeks ago when Luger showed up on Nitro on the very first night.
Yeah.
That kind of like big shake, that kind of big shift is something that really changed wrestling and really shook things up. And yeah, that's one that a lot of people go to in the sense of just the takeover or the buyout of that company, which again was for a stupid pittance of money. I think like the other day it was quoted for $4.5 million for just the treasure troves of all the videotapes that were put out.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Bischoff had been threatening to buy the company with some investors for a long time, but he'd worked up so much bad blood with the upper people in Turner Broadcasting by that point that they said, fine, we'll sell you the company, but you can't have any airtime and you can't have any of the library.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, Jesus, this is only worth a couple $100,000 yet. And that's why it got scrapped as cheap as it did.
And apparently Jericho said when he found out what McMahon bought everything for, he's like, I could have bought it.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It is insane.
It was literally like a house fire. Like, okay, cool, I'll pay 5% of what that thing's worth.
Yeah, it was astounding what he ended up walking away with. And if anybody's interested, there was a cat that ended up putting out a couple documentaries. A quick shout out to the guys over at Behind the Titantron was what it used to be called. Now it's called The Final Bell on WrestleLamia on YouTube. Cool cats. They've got about 45, 47 different videos, all of which are documentaries on things that WCW or the history of WCW and different crazy flights that they had, like the flight from hell, and then there's a lot of different really cool stuff that I would definitely take a look at from those cats over there at WrestleLamia. Know their stuff, good quick knowledge, and Final Bell has got some pretty cool stuff. And he put out one the other day that did grab my attention, and it was talking about the takeover and the conspiracy behind that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conspiracy supposedly behind the takeover, in which you, like you just said, Davison, was the idea of there being such bad blood that the money wasn't just the issue. It was the idea of, well, we're not going to give it to Eric Bischoff because not only does AOL want to get out of the company or in the business of doing wrestling, they also want to be completely cut ties with anything of the sort because it's that backwoods, mud style, southern, long draw, uneducated was the perspective of what wrestling was by those folks.
Bischoff is such a fascinating dude because even after all the years he spent in wrestling, he's still really not a quote-unquote wrestling guy. Yeah. He's always been a business guy. He's always been a Hollywood guy.
He's always been a Hollywood guy.
So his approach to things, like, it's not surprising that he was as successful as he was or that he was as cutthroat as he was because he wasn't coming at it from a wrestling perspective. He was strictly coming from a business perspective.
Yep.
So, yeah, it doesn't really surprise me that much that people would say we don't want any part of him. And T, I think you just clarified it for me. I'd always wondered, was it personal? Like, did he piss that many people off? Or was it strictly that he was so successful at the thing? Again, there's that Skywalker thing. Was he almost pigeonholed as an ultra-successful wrestling guy, therefore we can't have anything to do with him? Even though, truth told, he probably would have been helpful in building any other brand or product they wanted to, because that's just where his brain is at.
Yeah, he'd done a lot of other producing and production work outside of just wrestling for years on end, like you had mentioned a couple weeks ago, which goes back to what we said earlier this evening. Afternoon, day, whatever time you're listening to this wonderful podcast.
Yeah.
It's that Vince holds grudges. Vince is a individual who likes to hold on to his frustrations and his hatred, and he doesn't let it spill out immediately. He lets it fester, and then when he has an opportunity to actually take advantage and do something, he does. And that was something that with the Turner family that he felt so much excitement with. And the quote that I think of when I think of this is when Paul McCartney was talking to Michael Jackson. Paul McCartney was talking to Michael Jackson about the Beatles records and the Beatles originals and just saying, hey, we don't own the masters. And then, Michael Jackson said, oh, well, I'll buy them, ha ha ha. And there was just this certain level of like joking playfulness to it, but there was a sincerity to it. I strongly believe that Vince McMahon had that mindset. He's like, oh, I'll just buy it. And it's a snap, and it's just that ease of mind because it was not of concern or bother to him because it was just business. But he, I think, quoted at one point in time where he was like, yeah, it's just business, but it feels good. It's good business.
That wasn't just business. I mean, he bragged to all kinds of people.
No. And that's why I say I don't think that it was just business, and that's why I do think that he holds these grudges. And they may not be something that he brings up right now, but from what I heard, he hates farts. Was that the truth? That
I thought he loved farts.
Loves
He hates
farts.
sneezing and things that he
Sneezing.
can't stop himself yawning.
Yeah, something along. Yeah, things that
body
you can't
telling
control.
him to do
yeah.
it. Yeah.
So somebody sneezed next to him. He'll 4 years later, he'll be all upset. Like that's the thing that he had with Chris Jericho. The whole idea of wearing scarves.
Right.
He went after Chris Jericho one day on a diatribe, from what I had heard, because he wore scarves, and he said, "You know what? No man can pull off a scarf." And then he got over on it.
You know when he stopped giving him a hard time about scarves too? About the
When was
time
that?
that he actually picked a real fight with Brock Lesnar
Oh,
and Bill Goldberg.
man.
You know Jericho has fought both Lesnar and Bill Goldberg and
Several
has
times.
either won both or has won one decidedly. Everybody says he beat Goldberg in that fight.
And Brock he went toe to toe with Brock because of that. Twice now, from what I had heard.
Yeah.
There was that one years ago, but
Yeah.
from just other fights and arguments. But the one when he knocked Keith Orton in the head with the elbow.
That's how you win Vince's approval right there. is
You beat the big
demonstrate you
man's
beat the
ass in
crap
the-
out of somebody. I was going to go with something. Maybe I don't know if this is. I think this was actually older than what you brought up, but it's pretty close. It was definitely during the big fight between WWE and WCW for supremacy. I think we could all probably argue that this was a real turning point for how much violence the most mainstream wrestling was going to allow to occur. And that would have been Mankind and Undertaker in Hell in a Cell.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, that.
You know,
That basically just put a stamp on the whole thing.
that was
nobody-
like the bar and continues to be the bar.
We are the
for,
bar.
for
But-
what's
but-
going to happen.
But nobody
God damn it.
can go near it.
Nah.
Like you can't go
What?
near that.
Shane O'Mac tries every year.
I knew you were going to say that, and here's the difference. Yes, they've made it taller, and Shano has typically done something we could kind of say is more dangerous. Although, you go back and watch, and when he went to drop the elbow on The Undertaker from the top of the cage, what was that, 2 WrestleManias ago? From the top of Hell in a Cell?
Yeah.
Did you notice that the table that he went through had a giant inflatable airbag
Yeah.
inside
Oh
of
yeah,
it?
yeah. All that stuff is.
It's still dangerous and scary.
yeah, no doubt.
Not taking away from the height of that, but
No.
what you're landing on is different.
But what I'm saying is it's choreographed,
Yeah.
it's protected.
Yeah.
And that first one, there were people backstage who didn't even know Mick was going to take a dive.
Yeah.
And to say that Shane O'Mac, who might be in his mid-40s, I got to think he's infinitely more athletic than Mick Foley ever was at any point in his career. So his
Yeah.
ability to take that bump was questionable. So, yeah, that really drew the line of what are we going to allow? It drew the line of, oh my God, we can't give so many people so much free reign in the ring anymore.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know, so a lot of things got tightened up and changed as a result of that one night.
And even the guys in WCW knew that that was it.
Yep.
Like-
like, well, tomorrow's a new universe in our jobs. Let's see what happens
Yeah.
next.
Yeah, Kevin Sullivan, I think he was like, well, boys, that's it. You may as well pack your bags.
Yeah.
Nothing you're doing. And they tried sending Canyon off the top of the thing through the air mattress
It's
entrance.
just
And,
when you try to replicate, I mean, that's why innovation is so important. Because
Yeah.
the very first time you do a replication, it's infinitely sadder than the innovation was.
that's why I think one of my most impactful moments, and you know, we could, you know, there's a lot of different things that have happened, and we, like I said, we were discussing, especially in WWE. WCW has made a lot of action as well. I think my number 2 most impactful moment would probably be when the public eye shifted on a very serious note to WWE. WCW had attempted over the years to try to gain mainstream popularity, and it would almost be like in a sideshow fashion. Although they did some pretty groundbreaking stuff, none of it was ever a long-term thing. None of it was ever, you got the kind of feeling that guys were being pushed down the card for people like the likes of Karl Malone, Dennis Rodman, Jay Leno,
Oh, yeah.
and
Gotcha. Yeah.
That was a
era.
weird era because they had like connections, but
Yeah.
none of their connections were very cool, really.
$500,000 to Kiss.
yeah, $500,000 to get kissed to lip sync on Monday Nitro. Like, it just, a lot of the stuff they were doing was very questionable. But when WWE swarmed in on the idea of getting Mike Tyson involved, that was, I feel, a major turning point because Mike Tyson was the bad boy of sports.
Yep.
I think, Davison, you alluded to it, he had just gotten out of prison recently.
Yeah. Well, he was not just famous and he was not just revered as an athlete, but he was now notorious as well for
And also, he is one of the scariest human beings alive.
Was that before or after he met that guy?
Before.
That was before.
He was married
Holyfield.
to Robin Givens, I believe her name
Oh.
was, from Head of the Class way back in
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
There were some real severe, spooky allegations against him that he was convicted of. That's why he was in prison.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
He came out, he hit WWE.
And that was huge. Because
Didn't her and Dre have a relationship?
I don't know.
Robin?
But when the first time he fought Holyfield, he bit his ear off.
yeah. But when
I watched that match.
When Tyson was at the Rumble cheering for Austin, and then he came out the next night and got introduced by McMahon, and then Austin came out there, and they got, he gave him the double bird, and then he shoved Austin, and it was a
Right.
melee in the ring.
That fight was amazing, too.
It
That looked so
was-
real.
Yeah.
It was so real. Austin was even pounding on one of his dudes, like he was dropping knees and stuff. It was chaos.
Yeah.
And instantly, the next morning, you saw the shift of, oh, here's Hollywood Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman hanging out on, Jay Leno, to last night, Iron Mike Tyson and Stone Cold Steve Austin got into a fight, and now he's going to be the special guest referee in the main event at WrestleMania. That is money. People would pay because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're like, Mike Tyson is going to be on a pay-per-view
Right.
along with wrestling. That was it. That was when, and as soon as, and like Jim Ross said, after Austin won the title, the Austin era has begun. And you notice.
Do you think that Tyson, I never thought of this before, I'm thinking about how the world viewed Tyson in wrestling. So, like, if we put Tyson in a split screen on one side, and then we put Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman and Jay Leno on the other, the major distinction is I would actually be afraid that Tyson might go off script and fuck somebody up.
That's what I'm
right?
saying. Yeah.
But so then if you fast forward it to today, and when Josh was here the other time talking about his Fed, we mentioned that Rick and Morty had been kind of a tie-in business-wise for AEW.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool bit of kind of business cohesion.
Yeah.
Vince is now the one bringing out the modern equivalents of Malone. You know
Basically,
what I mean?
with all the UFC fighters who have no idea how to wrestle.
Isn't
and
it so cool to be a wrestling
boxers.
fan for this long and to see Vince go in 20 years' time from the innovator to now being the one who's being innovated upon because he hasn't changed his tune?
I've said it before. I'll say it before, and I said it again. It is reminding me so much of WCW 2000 right now.
Exactly.
WWE's main product right now is so WCW 2000. It's frustrating. But I feel like that's when, back then, during the Attitude Era, that's when that shift happened. Literally when the Austin era began. I mean, that was when Austin was getting real freaking steam. And, and if we ever talk about it, which I'm sure we will at some point, but entrance music, anytime that glass hit, people popped.
Honestly, every time I hear a glass shatter, I get really excited.
Absolutely. Every time you hear that glass, you're like looking around.
I'm at the bar clapping and scared.
Well, you know what, Mark? You'll appreciate this too. And I don't know if you thought it back in the day. Not only was that cool and that glass is nice because it just grabs your attention the perfect way. The theme itself, while it was still Johnston, what is his name, Jim Johnston?
Yeah, Jim Johnson, the original Stone Cold.
Yeah. So he would have written the theme music for like The Ultimate Warrior and a couple of these other tunes that were considered like heavier rock intros.
Yeah.
Except if you listen to it now, they don't sound all that cool. Like it's just like like thin guitars and stuff like that. Think about what was happening in terms of underground music turning into popular music at the same time as Stone Cold. If we made those guitar tones cooler in his theme music, it's chugs. It's jun. That was the biggest thing blowing up was new metal and like hardcore was starting to blow up.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure they meant it that way, but the production was so kind of crappy to me.
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
honestly didn't make the connection, but that was definitely part of it too, I think.
Yeah. Is there any other moments that you can reflect upon?
I mean, I would say Shane Douglas throwing down the NWA title when he won that pre-ECW.
Yeah.
That was the birthplace and creation. It had already been called Eastern Championship Wrestling for a long time.
Yeah.
And they had a working relationship with NWA. But on the back burner, Shane and Heyman have been talking for a while about like, yo, this whole wrestling thing needs a revamp.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they decided to hijack the NWA. They threw the title down. They started the Eastern Championship Wrestling now into Extreme Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that gave birth to the whole thing.
And that wasn't, the whole NWA thing, it's a group of territories, and going into the mid 90s, the early mid 90s, those territories were dropping like flies. Basically, when they sold to Ted Turner, WCW was done with the NWA, and that was like their stomping grounds.
Right.
So Eastern Championship Wrestling was probably their most, that was basically their last, the NWA title now, there's a lot of prestige to it, but
Oh, he lost a ton, though, around that time period.
I mean, even now when you look at it, there's a lot of, glamour. As you think back, man, all the people who've held that title.
Right.
But it has a completely different meaning now. And I think the franchise was the one to frickin' put his foot down and literally crush the throat. Like Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. Where, he's already dropped the giraffe-looking mother bitch. Now he's just going to... squeeze on the balls really quick and make sure them bitches just pop,
You did?
And,
You did.
and that was it. When the franchise dropped that title, he was like, F the NWA.
Yep.
He's like, this is old. He's like, we're not going to carry a torch of a company that just died a decade ago.
You know what I will say, though, is just like Cody is bringing back the Rhodes name and the Dynasty, I keep calling him Magnus. I think I finally remember his name that he's wrestling under. Nick Aldis. He's the NWA champion and has been for quite some time. He is returning it to championship level. And I would say the fact that he and Cody had the feud over that title. Cody was NWA champion for a short while.
Word.
Yeah, it was the very first AEW pay-per-view. That was Cody's match, was against Nick Aldis for the NWA title. And I recognized it right about then, holy shit.
Huh.
This isn't the main event of the show. But this is Dusty Rhodes' son winning the NWA World title. And then now watching how NWA's branched off, and they're really recreating the meat and bones of the old school territory feeling.
Yeah.
I'm watching AEW and NWA on a little bit of a parallel path.
Yeah.
Of here's the new school representation of it, and here's the completely nostalgic representation of it.
Right, exactly.
But a glove in a hand kind of a thing.
No doubt. I think if you're going to talk about all time... Though, I mean, it's quite clear, NWO, the formation of the New World Order forced wrestling to completely change.
Yes, it did.
Absolutely.
There was a lot of, like I said, this was the time before the internet really popped off, when they had the curtain call at Madison Square Garden, and then the next night there's Scott Hall showing up on Monday Nitro. It changed everything, and the fact that he just showed up and just started talking, he didn't whoop anybody's asses. He was just like, I go to war, we're going to war.
Yeah.
And then Nash showed up and forgot what adjectives were.
You know what else is really telling about that? I mean, I've seen this clip so many millions of times. So Larry Zbyszko was on announcing with Shivani, Schiavone, as Jericho would occasionally refer to him as. And then we hear Zbyszko very fervently arguing about the merits of the Mauler, who was the person in the ring, who was basically a barely glorified jobber, beating a completely unglorified jobber in the match.
Yeah.
The fact that it was Zbyszko announcing, and Zbyszko is a legend unto himself, but he sucks as a modern announcer. He's so boring. And then he's calling a double jobber match. And then when Hall is actually coming into the over the fence, Zbyszko almost pulled, how Heenan gets some shit for his call when Hogan came to the ring during the NWO turn.
Yeah.
And he was like, but whose side is he on? You didn't have to say that, Brain. You didn't have to give anybody a question about it.
Yeah.
And there was something similar in this call where it was kind of giving it away before it even happened. Mm-hmm. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm running away with it.
No, I totally get it, though. But yeah, I think, when the NWO formed, that was when they took it into a completely different direction. And Hogan had the most heat any wrestler has ever had on him at that point. It was such a changing of the guard in terms of even when he hit the mic for the first time.
Yeah.
Where it's you got to come out and you got to be a completely different character. Yep. And he always had that roughness to his voice, but he always had a positive light. So when he hit the mic and he's like, Mean Gene, the first thing you need to do is tell these fans to shut up if they want to hear what I gotta say. Yep. And it was just
he really hadn't changed his voice. That's the best part about it.
He just had, it was more of an evil tone, and you knew this This is it.
Yeah.
So it was just, I think you know, when you look at it, that forced everything to change. But at the same time, one can make an argument that ECW, even and the NWO was taken from New Japan.
Yep.
The idea from it.
Yep.
But they didn't have the they didn't have the prestige of having Hogan as the guy to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it literally forced everybody to try harder and changed wrestling for good. So
That's why I get so bristly about people who continue insisting that Vince is this genius. I mean, he's doing a thing I'll never do, so clearly he's good at it. But I can't think of any real original ideas he's come up with. When you're the biggest show in town and you've got the biggest stage and the biggest lights and the biggest microphones, you can snag anybody's idea and say, here. And people go, oh my God, that's amazing, and take it as yours. I guess that's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
we're in a free market economy or whatever, but it just doesn't strike me as genius creativity.
no.
Or new.
You know?
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Well, we will be back in 2020. We're going to have Independence Pro Wrestling owner Josh Raymond. He's going to be joining us again, and a couple other superstars as well.
Yep.
So we will talk to you in 2020. Thanks for hanging out on the Crucial Squared Circle. Make sure you follow us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Deuces.